of victims of illicit brew rose to 13 today. So did the anger of Kangai residents who set ablaze the alleged bar that sold the alcohol, taking matters into their own hands, saying they were revenging for the loss of their loved ones.
Tukaamua kuichoma, kuchukua sheria mkononi juu sasa watu wamechoka, watu wanakufa, tutaendelea kufa mpaka lini? Watoto wetu wataendelea kufa mpaka lini juu ya hii pombe?
Mimi ni mkaanji katika Kalikuini na tuko na huzuni sana kwa maana kumeaga watu wengi sana kwa hii ya pombe hapa kwa huyu mtu anaitwa California.
Residents insisting that the police have been slow to respond to their many calls to arrest the suspect, and even when they made arrest, the suspects walked away scot-free.
Nachukuliwa si ni pombe tu, hakuna hatua, watu wakilalamika anakuja anashikwa, anapelekwa, anarudi tena, anakuja kulingia watu hapa. Amejaribu kushikwa, watu wamelalamika, lakini hakuna kitu inafanyika.
The illicit brew in Kangai, Kiambu County has claimed more lives, bringing the toll number to 13, while 4 others went blind.
Watu wengi sana na wengine wakakosa maso na wako hospitali. Sasa hata tujui kama serikali tutusaidia kwa maana ya masisi.
Shamila Baraza, Lookuptv.
Moving on, suspects linked to the bar that allegedly sold the deadly alcohol that killed 13 people have been arrested and set to be arraigned in court. Confirming the incident, Regional Commissioner Frederick Shisia now says the suspects will be charged with murder, as Mevin Getembe reports.
Unelected Mike Mbuvi Sonko, the former Nairobi governor, and
as investigations to ascertain the substance used in the illicit brew that killed at least 13 people after consuming expired alcohol takes shape, the main suspect linked to the bar in question has been arrested. Regional Commander Freddy Shisia now says the suspect will be arraigned in court and charged with murder.
Kumaliza hii kitu. Yes, arrests are there. They have been made, including the prime suspect is in custody. In the first place, ameua. Yes. Na mashtaka mengine itafuata. KRA watamwangalia, anti-counterfeit watamwangalia, KEBS watamwangalia, police nao watamwangalia. So charges zitakuwa nyingi.
Shisia now wants the government to work along with other security agencies to tame rogue brewers.
Haustahili kuwa katika hiyo ofisi. Kwa hivyo nawaomba watumishi wa serikali wote ambao wako katika eneo hili waweze kuchukulia jambo hili kwa uzito na washirikiane kikamilifu jinsi inavyopaswa ili tuweze kufanya eneo la Kirinyaga liwe eneo nzuri.
Sports Culture and Social Services Executive Dennis Mushimi revealed that the County Liquor Licensing Committee had rejected the bar's application for license last year on allegations of selling illegal liquor.
Kutoka ofisi ya governor nataka kuhakikishia wananchi kwamba hii bar ya California tulifanya inspection December na tukai-reject. So kwa upande wa serikali ama kwa upande wa governor hii bar haijapewa license. Na nimesikia pia ingine hiyo ya Kandongo hatujaipea license. So amekuwa akioperate illegally na kupitia ofisi ya county commissioner tumekuwa tukimwarrest, anapelekwa kotini, anaachiliwa, lakini leo hii najua kupitia ofisi ya RC mazuri itapatikana.
Kirinyaga Deputy Speaker supported Mushimi's sentiments, noting that corruption witnessed in the government, especially in judiciary, is now wanting, asking the government to intervene.
Kana kwamba huyu ambaye mwenye kutenda hii kitendo kwa sababu ni muuaji amekuwa katika hii biashara ya pombe karibu zaidi ya miaka 15. Na hii pombe ni ile ya kifo na imejulikana ni ya kutengenezewa hapa mmeona, na anafanya namna hiyo kukiwa na uongozi ambao umekuwa huku. Tumekuwa na Kiamashiri Police Station, tumekuwa na koti zetu za Baricho, lakini inaaminika kwamba mara tu anaposhikwa na polisi akipelekwa kotini anaachiliwa mara moja.
Mevin Getembe, Lookuptv.
An elected Mike Mbuvi Sonko, the former Nairobi governor, and 16 others are marching their way to freedom after the court acquitted them in the 357 million shillings corruption case, which has been pending since 2019. The infamous case, which cost Sonko his governor seat position and prevented him from vying in the 2022 election, is now behind him.
For us, as the defense, we thank God for this moment. And we also thank the court that the court has been very diligent and actually very courteous. The Honorable Muturi, and God bless you, because you have been very courteous and very judicious and judicial in the manner in which you handle the case.
Trial Magistrate Eunice Muturi acquitted the 17, saying there was no evidence placed before the court to warrant their conviction. Further, Muturi expressed her frustrations brought about by the DPP, who she said has on several times sought an adjournment in the case.
Had we any such clear sabotage, frustration, scattering and bungling of cases would be a thing of the past, especially when the cases involve a public agenda, national security, safety of the citizenry, or arise from the loss of public funds, such as in this instant case. Parliament or the Office of Public Prosecution itself ought to develop regulations for making public prosecutors accountable for the manner in which they conduct cases and hold them accountable for negligence as well as willful, premeditated and connived loss of cases. In conclusion, I find that the prosecution has failed to establish a prima facie case against all the accused persons on all the charges, and I hereby acquit them pursuant to Section 210 of the Criminal Procedure Code.
The case has been in court since 2019, but the prosecution managed to call only 6 witnesses, with the prime one testifying more than a year.
This matter was instituted in the year 2019. Due to the intervening COVID pandemic, the trial took off on the 8th of November 2021. In the course of this trial, this court diligently put in measures to minimize adjournments.
We just thank God for the victory. That is all I can say for now.
John Matava, Lookuptv.
Now, after the acquittal of former Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko, questions continue to linger over whether the flamboyant politician can now view or vie for an elective position in the coming elections. Well, Ian Kitani spoke to Dunstan Omari, who argues that once the governor presents the judgment for preview or review at the Supreme Court and is clear, then he can vie for any seat come 2027. Let's take a look.
With former Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko being acquitted by Magistrate Eunice Muturi in a case relating to the alleged misappropriation of funds amounting to 357 million belonging to the Nairobi County government, questions continue to linger on what the ruling means for the once embattled politician. The former governor, who had been barred from vying for an elective position, can vie again if he is cleared by the Supreme Court. This is according to city lawyer Dunstan Omari.
What he needs to do is to take that judgment and present it for review at the Supreme Court. Then he will be cleared, because the impeachment, the roots of the impeachment has been found to be hot air. So governor can hold now public office because he has no conviction.
However, Advocate Paul Macharia differs, noting that the governor was bundled out of office on various grounds, and despite the acquittal, he is yet to be cleared on the other charges that warranted his impeachment and being barred from running.
For you to be removed, it is not a single ground. Yes, one ground may fail, but if other grounds have not been set aside, you cannot still be able to vie for a position of a county governor.
With Magistrate Eunice Muturi blaming the prosecution for bungling the case, calling on Parliament to develop regulations to hold prosecutors accountable, City lawyer Omari rubbished those sentiments, terming them as hot air, with his counterpart Paul Macharia welcoming the move.
The magistrate is completely out of order. She was expecting a certain way of prosecution. The prosecute, the court has no jurisdiction on matters prosecution. Article 157 mandates the ODPP to prosecute. And therefore, that trying to say that Parliament can review. She's not a court of record. If it was the High Court making that finding, it would have substance. So that to me, she went overboard, and she could not. Whatever she said is what I call hot air. It does not have any efficacy in law. It is her own sentiments. It's not binding to anybody.
A prosecutor cannot be taken to account for performing their duty. But then the magistrate is suggesting, then they have a duty of care. They need to demonstrate that even in conducting their cases, they exercise their due diligence.
Both lawyers, however, agree that the former governor is within his right to sue the state on grounds of malicious prosecution, if indeed he proves so.
There is what is called a malicious prosecution. He'll have to sue the Kenya government, so that if he proves that the prosecution was malicious, then he will be compensated. It is available in law. But it is him to prove that the prosecution was malicious. But it stands to be compensated heavily, and the loss of income from the time he lost his job as a governor.
3 key suspects held in a connection with the gas explosion tragedy that claimed 7 lives in Embakasi will be held for 21 more days to allow investigators conclude their probe. Nairobi Magistrate Dolphina Alego Tuesday ordered that Derek Kimathi, the owner of the ill-fated station, together with Joseph Makau and Mariana Mutete Kioko, both of whom are officers at NEMA, to remain in custody as police build murder charges against them. Let's take a look.
That investigation of such magnitude cannot be done in a day or two, as it needs a lot of intra-agency cooperations and have investigations concluded before the files are taken to the office of the Director of Public Prosecution. I equally agree with the defense that their clients are still innocent until proved otherwise. I beseech all of us, and I repeat, I beseech all of us to allow investigations to be done in the most humane and immediate possible way by the relevant authorities, because we are either directly affected or infected by this unfortunate mishap at Embakasi area as Kenyans. Conclusively, and most importantly, for the first, the second, and the fourth respondent, they will be held for the 21 days that applicant has applied for. For the third respondent, the court has taken judicial notice that he has a delicate medical condition that would require delicate measures as is being investigated. This court is equally a human rights defender and must balance these peculiar circumstances for the said respondent. And as such, this court hearing orders that he be put in a police station near to the hospital.
Attorney General Justin Muturi appeared before the Joint Parliamentary Committee on Finance and National Planning and that of the Housing, Urban Planning and Public Works to answer to issues raised in the recently annulled Housing Levy 2023 by the courts. Stanley Lugaria now reports on that one.
Honor an invitation on Tuesday by a section of lawmakers. On Wednesday, Attorney General Justin Muturi availed himself within Parliament precincts, appearing before a joint parliamentary committee on debatable housing levy that has since been thwarted by the courts.
The Finance Act, wherein the Cabinet Secretary for Lands is the one that was giving authority to the KRA, has now been remedied by this profession.
The committee believed the whole process on the housing levy is discriminatory, with a keen interest to understand whether the levy is accepted by a majority of Kenyans, as well as whether consideration has been put in place for those in the employment sector compelled to contribute to the kitty with no intention of getting a house, if at all the scheme is meant to benefit only the rich, questioning whether the government has ever thought of renting the constructed houses rather than selling the houses.
This element And I've had occasion to argue with some of my friends in the judiciary that it may look discriminatory, but who is ever going to do it? If it's not those of us that have been lucky.
This issue of land under Article 62 it becomes a very critical issue, even as we're discussing on this affordable bill.
But how about a situation where you allocate money to institutions, and those institutions may not allocate those houses to individual persons? Because hostels, once hostels are done, you cannot allocate to students.
Members of the August House sought to understand whether the AG was involved during the drafting of the Finance Bill 2023, where the housing levy was discussed, as well as his take on the exclusion of county government on the contentious bill, and how the government plans to ensure Mama Mboga is deducted the 1.5% meant for the affordable housing.
In discharge of the functions between the two levels of government may be addressed through an express provision in the bill providing for consultation and cooperation where such arises.
In his defense, Muturi claimed that the keeping of deductions role was left to the instructing authority, revealing that as an Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya, he does not engage in drafting of bills. However, his office has a legal team involved in drafting processes with no monopoly of ideas, owing to the fact that bill formulation involves a series of processes, sentiments echoed by Mwachi from the AG's legal office.
Let me start by confirming that we were involved from the word go. And our involvement is about drafting best on the policy direction given our clients.
The state, where it is currently, even if we were to allocate money to NHC, it will not access that money unless we change that housing fund, which is under Cap 117.
Framework affects legal certainty, which is a hallmark of the rule of law, good governance, transparency, and accountability under Article 10, Clause 2, paragraphs A and C of the Constitution.
The Attorney General Justin Muturi, appearing before a joint parliamentary committee, has revealed indeed there are loopholes in the housing levy, and now says the laws during its amendment stage should incorporate the counties. Stanley Lugaria, Lookuptv, at the Parliament headquarters in Nairobi.
That story by the AG, or Stanley Lugaria then, is exactly what introduces us to our conversation this morning. Here's the thing. I was seated at the gallery yesterday. That's where we get to see as journalists when we want to take a break and see exactly what's going on in the parliament, in other TV stations. And we experience a mood. That's which gentlemen were laughing throughout. It was easy business for the AG throughout that entire process. But here's the thing though, if you read the AG's mood and then compare that with the president's, it's a huge contrast. Now the president is over the other side really complaining about how majority of his projects are failing just because the courts are having to send them back to the drawing board. But there's a man in the middle of that, the AG. But here's the thing though, now I'm going to read for you a particular note here, which is essentially going to introduce us to our conversation this morning. Now, listen to this. Now, however, and we wrote it on our website yesterday, that's on www.lookuptv.co.ke, that however, when members of parliament raise several issues that are still of concern with Baringo North Member of Parliament, Joseph Makilap, he was worried about the possibility of a person buying several houses through proxies. So this is what the AG say, and I want you to listen. I've also thought about it myself. It's a possibility, but the ministry seems to suggest that they'll put in place measures to avoid that. But it is something that as a committee you must tighten the laws to ensure that one person does not purchase many houses using poor people. Hold on, you thought about it and you let it go like that to the implementation stage, to the point that levies were getting collected. So if you thought about it, why didn't you first advise the ministry then to put in place measures that were going to stop this from happening? So the question that we're asking this morning is it okay for you to say that indeed that one man, the AG, is the reason as why the president is not getting his way? This morning, right here on the Morning Drift, the courts have also put a stop on the collection of fees through the pay bill number 2222, or should I say e-citizen. Again, the AG is in that as well. Did you advise the president or the education ministry before they came up with it? Once we come back, you can see the guests that we are going to talk to this morning already seated in the studio. So much talk about, but specifically on that one man, AG Muturi, once we come back.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park, fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
What about mambo fantastic if not scholastic? Chota kuchota na Hatia Supermarket imerudi. Ukifanya tu shopping ya shilingi 1,000, wewe unaingia kwa promotion ya chota kuchota na Hatia Supermarket. Watu wanaendelea kushinda ndani ya Hatia Supermarket. What tata? Kitoko. Hey, wewe na umeshinda nini?
Yote. Hamsa. Nalala.
Karibu ndani ya Hatia Supermarket uweze kuchota kwa wingi kabisa. Boss, uko unasema nini? Nakwambia kwamba chota kuchota. Unangoja nini?
Magari 7 za kushindaniwa, TV, fridge, microwave, shopping vouchers, school fees vouchers, instant prizes na zawadi zingine kemkem. Chota kuchota imethaminiwa na Hetia's Oven Fresh Bakery, Gigabyte, Mount Kenya Milk, Clover's Food Products, Velvex, Magic Drink, Pwani Oil, Arenco, Fruit Juice, Masterchef, Toilex, Coolsip, Mika, Wash Ultra, Philos, Prestol, Nivea, My Choice, Ushindi, Fresh Fry, Arimis Jelly, Cabernet Water, Dettol, Ketepa, Meta, Glucose, Coca-Cola, Rosy Tissue, Big Giant, Elbins, Unilever, Fresh, Unga wa Dola, Blue Band na Pasta Star. Shindano la chota kuchota linaanza tarehe 1 Disemba hadi tarehe 10 Februari mwaka 2024.
Hatia Supermarket, a world of choice.
As the night falls, we come to life to bring you a comprehensive broadcast from the numerous events happening across our 47 counties.
When it breaks, it matters, and each story is important.
If it's Thursday, join me, Nancy Lima, and my able panelists as we break down the law jargons and analyze the Constitution in a way only you can understand.
The news cycle never stops, neither does time. We cover each and every sector and present to you factual and accurate occurrences. This is where facts win the day. Join me,
Nancy Lima,
Ian Keitani, Tuesday, every Wednesday,
Thursday,
as from 9 p.m. on The Insight, only on Lookuptv.
na Manjoro. Kumbuka hapa ndipo unajifunza mambo mengi kuhusu ukulima. Kilimo ni uti wa mgongo wa nchi. Na ukiwa na Njoro unajifunza. Kumbuka, angalia mwenyewe. Tunakuambia ukitaka kujua tips za ukulima, ungana na sisi kwenye Lookuptv. Every Sunday unatukuta pale saa 10, tunakuonesha kuhusu ukulima. Ukulima wa mimea, ukulima wa ng'ombe, ukulima wa kuku, ukulima wa mbuzi na yote ambayo yanahusiana na ukulima. Kumbuka nini? Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali.
If you want to have a proper outlook of the economy, then you have to speak to the wheels and gears of the integral businesses in the country.
And I want to be able to make the youths and everybody coming up in Kenya know that this is here locally.
Men and women in the thick of the bust of markets rising and falling, fighting to make their business decisions stick.
I've always lived in my career that I can never be late.
You need to train by yourself. You need to practice by yourself. Then from there you can compose yourself and give kind of services like this.
On season 2 of the Captain's Arena, we seek the inside of the minds, predict the shift in the markets, get inspiration to start and make sense of it all.
Just watch what everybody else is doing and just make sure you're giving back to the society.
Oof. This is the Captain's Arena. All right. Welcome back to the Morning Drift. My name is Simba Elijah Charles King. In case you're just joining us, we are tackling the issues around government policies, and we've asked questions about the role of particular officials in the way that the government is approaching these policies. And at the back of that, we'll find the majority of the government policies have been taken to court, all the way from SHIF, Maisha Number, housing levy now, all the way to the just recently stopped school fee payment system through the e-citizen platform or pay bill number 22222. 6 twos in that. Good. And at the back of that, you ask yourself the question, if indeed we are concerned about the way government policies are implemented, then you have to look at who is at the center of implementing these policies. Then you find that there's one, the Solicitor General, and number 2, the AG. Currently, we do have that as Justin Muturi. So yesterday, it was called by 3 committees to sort of answer questions as to why these particular policies by the government, specifically the housing levy, have essentially been running into blocks. There's just a lot that we're going to read about that this morning. But just before I introduce the guests who are joining us this morning for that particular conversation, let's take a look at that story that was covered by Stanley Lugaria that essentially breaks down what the AG thinks about the housing levy and in general why majority of the bills by the government have been hitting the wall when they get to the courts. Let's take a look.
After failing to honor an invitation on Tuesday by a section of lawmakers, on Wednesday, Attorney General Justin Muturi availed himself within Parliament precincts, appearing before a joint parliamentary committee on debatable housing levy that has since been thwarted by the courts.
The Finance Act, wherein the Cabinet Secretary for Lands is the one that was giving authority to the KRA, has now been remedied by this provision.
The committee believed the whole process on the housing levy is discriminatory, with a keen interest to understand whether the levy is accepted by a majority of Kenyans, as well as whether consideration has been put in place for those in the employment sector compelled to contribute to the kitty with no intention of getting a house, if at all the scheme is meant to benefit only the rich, questioning whether the government has ever thought of renting the constructed houses rather than selling the houses.
This element, and I've had occasion to argue with some of my friends in the judiciary, that it may look discriminatory, but who is ever going to do it? If it's not those of us that have been lucky.
This issue of land under Article 62 it becomes a very critical issue, even as we're discussing on this affordable bill.
But how about a situation where you allocate money to institutions, and those institutions may not allocate those houses to individual persons? Because hostels, once hostels are done, you cannot allocate to students.
Members of the August House sought to understand whether the AG was involved during the drafting of the Finance Bill 2023, where the housing levy was discussed, as well as his take on the exclusion of county government on the contentious bill, and how the government plans to ensure Mama Mboga is deducted the 1.5% meant for the affordable housing.
In discharge of the functions between the two levels of government may be addressed through an express provision in the bill providing for consultation and cooperation where such arises.
In his defense, Muturi claimed that the keeping of deductions role was left to the instructing authority, revealing that as an Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya, he does not engage in drafting of bills. However, his office has a legal team involved in drafting processes with no monopoly of ideas, owing to the fact that bill formulation involves a series of processes, sentiments echoed by Mwachi from the AG's legal office.
Let me start by confirming that we were involved from the word go. And our involvement is about drafting best on the policy direction given our clients.
The state where it is currently, even if we were to allocate money to NHC, it will not access that money unless we change that housing fund, which is under Cap 117.
Framework affects legal certainty, which is a hallmark of the rule of law, good governance, transparency, and accountability under Article 10, Clause 2, paragraphs A and C of the Constitution.
The Attorney General Justin Muturi, appearing before a joint parliamentary committee, has revealed indeed there are loopholes in the housing levy, and now says the laws during its amendment stage should incorporate the counties. Stanley Lugaria, Lookuptv, at the Parliament headquarters in Nairobi.
Joining us this morning then to look into the conduct of one AG Muturi in the failure of the implementation of government policies as per law is Ruth Bolo, who is a board chair, Young Women at Leaders Connect. Bolo, how are you doing?
Fine, thank you. Glad to be here.
Happy to have you around. Also joining her is Morphus King Ephraim, who is a policy analyst, advocate, the student leader and youth in the country. Ephraim, how are you doing, sir?
I'm not good.
You're not good?
Not good.
You're going to talk about why you're not good this morning, Ephraim.
Thank you.
All right, on that particular basis then, let's look at the notes from that story that has been covered by one Stanley Lugaria, essentially talking about the AG explaining himself on why majority of these bills then have been running into a block. With just on an introduction basis, we do know very well that there are two gentlemen who've been given the responsibility, number one, of advising the president, work with him, so that once the president declares something, once the presidency, and I want to use the word presidency, once the presidency essentially thinks about an implementation of an agenda or an executive order, that executive order or any other policy that you're thinking about is essentially confined within law. One man for that job is the Solicitor General, and the other man who has essentially been given the role to advise this ministry is also seated at the JSC, is the AG, who's Justin Muturi. So if indeed we have a scenario where majority of government policies that are big implementation agenda for one President Dr. William Ruto, all of them hitting a wall when they face the courts, should we go back and ask these two gentlemen whether indeed they are doing their job? And case in point, one man, AG Muturi, are you doing your job?
Remember, we need to ask ourselves the background. I think it is the first time where a lot of Kenyans are questioning a number of these appointments.
Yes.
And now more than ever, everyone is looking to see whether the AG's appointment was based on merit,
yes,
or was a purely political move.
Yes.
And so I think the fact that he is you know, the president is, every time the president brings on an agenda, it's got a constitutional hindrance.
Yes.
Now that is what is making us ask ourselves, is it that the president does not listen, or is it that the attorney general is not doing his job? But if you see, or is it that the attorney general is purely there to just, as a fanatic of the president, hence cannot tell him this is not going to pass because of ABCD until we change it, or we need to actually have a keener look at this and this, or we need to do public, you know, he's not, it could be that he is a fanatic of the president, or he wants to retain his job, and so he is very careful in what he says, when and how.
Does that?
Because, I mean, it's not the first time that he is in public office, just that it's a different capacity. It's not the first time he's in public office. And so to see the kind of constitutional hindrances and blunders that the president's agenda is going through, and the fact that most of his agendas begin without having a proper framework to guide it. And they're actually saying that, yes, we will need to develop, we have already begun, but we will need to develop it somewhere along the way, a framework that actually helps to guide this. How do you start a project without having a framework to see it through to the end? And so that's why for me, I don't think it is a case of who is listening to who, but the Attorney General is starting to look like he is protecting his job, and he is protecting the man who gave him that job.
Yes.
And probably that is why they are not
Is it protecting him, or now is exposing him? I mean, I like the way you say that, well, it looks like a man who wants to keep his job and protect the man who gave him that job.
Exactly.
But the more he doesn't do this or advise him or advise these ministries before they actually go on and implement the president's agenda, it is exposing him more.
Two things. One, remember the AG is a politician. Publicity is publicity for a politician, good or bad, negative or positive. So for him, this is helping him to maintain relevance in the political sphere between now and 2027. But also too, I don't think I would say that it is exposing. He knows or he realizes that it is exposing the president. I don't think he realizes it because, again, he might not want to come out as the person that is hindering the president's agenda. We have seen what has happened to some members of parliament that went against this bill the first time it was being voted in parliament. We saw the comments, we had some of the threats that were happening, we saw what was happening in their political parties.
Yes.
So then how do you expect this man who was given this particular position as a reward to then be able to go against the very man who put it? So I think for me, I don't think the Attorney General realizes that he is exposing him. You know, when you're a fanatic of someone, whether or not the person is on the wrong or right, for you it is all systems go. Because your mind is to protect, your mind is set to protect the person, your mind is set to support the person even when they are wrong, your mind is set to market it to everyone else around so that they also on board to that idea. So I don't think the Attorney General realizes the damage that he is doing. I think for him it is, my job is to support. He's not tuned to make sure that things are done the right way.
Yes.
He is tuned to make sure that things are done full stop.
That's it. I'll be coming to you on that because, I mean, we have to look at the notes. And some of them, by the way, and I told you generally yesterday, if you watch the mood of that particular hearing, when he met the three committees, you would think it was a boys' club meeting. There were laughters and giggles all over within that entire briefing. And I'll be telling you exactly the notes that came out of Muturi. It's like you start asking yourself the question, hold on, why are you acting in a pedestrian way? I mean, you should be scrutinizing this for us.
Yes.
All right, let me cross over then to Ephraim. Send some question to you, Ephraim, just before we then start to look at the specific notes that came out yesterday from that particular hearing. I got to bring to your attention that it's not the very first time that AG Muturi has been called, but snapped members of parliament. It was called the other time when members of parliament realized that, well, majority of these policies are not essentially tight in the legal framework. Well, it did appear, and yesterday it's a good thing that yes, it did appear to face this committee. When you look at the AG now, with the failure of majority of these policies, would you say that it's failing as a job?
First of all, I want to appreciate the platform that I've been given this morning. And just to make a comment on the current AG that we have.
Yes.
Just to generalize things, I want to say that we have a shambolic government. That it does not start from the AG. Remember, the AG himself is a junior in this government. You understand? So meaning is getting instructions from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Now the question we should be asking ourselves, who is this person that is giving the AG instructions? On the other hand, we might say he's sleeping on his job.
Yes.
But that's not a surprise to me, because the AG is a politician. Remember, he was an MP at one time, and even at one time there was a debate that he could be the next Mount Kenya kingpin. You understand?
Does it?
So he has to pay the cards right, so that in future, in his future political aspirations that he might have,
yes,
he will not be blamed by the common mwananchi. Now coming to particularly the housing levy fund that's being implemented by the current regime. I'll say that I remember during the Kenya Kwanza campaigns, they used to conduct county forums in the name of consulting the common mwananchi.
Yes.
That we are going, this is what we want us to do for you. You understand? And they drafted a report on what the Kenyans said. And yesterday I was looking at the report. There is not a single day, though the housing fund, the housing manifesto or part of it was there, but there was not a single way in which it was directed how the funds were going to be raised. You understand?
Yes.
So from the beginning we can tell that we are having a government that had a vision but don't have transport to get that vision. They were relying on someone else's pockets. You understand? Right now, Simba, you cannot budget on someone else's pocket. That's something that cannot happen. And it must not happen. That's the type of government we have. Right now, yesterday he made appearance at the National Assembly buildings. And from number one, the mood and even how they interacted with fellow members, you could tell that these people are jokers. They don't have the interest of the common mwananchi at heart. And going forward, if this regime is going to implement the housing levy and build those houses, another scandal is going to loom. You understand, my friend? So what we are saying at the young people of this country is that the government of the day, they should not be playing populist politics, whereby they just want to do things they feel are important to them. And if you dig deeper into this housing levy, you'll find that even these houses, the way they are being allocated, there's politics. You remember at one time, the deputy president stood on a public platform to tell that this government is going to reward its shareholders. You understand?
Yes.
That means that even these houses, they are going to be awarded to their shareholders. You understand? So it's not a national thing. Coming to the AG, I heard some of the recommendations that he had put in place, that the housing levy should be conducted in a similar manner to the social health insurance fund.
Yes.
You understand? And there's a clause that made me laugh, that Kenyans should contribute 1.5% to build homes. Then upon retirement, if you don't want a house, your money will be returned back. Now, if I were in that community, I would have asked the AG, what if I don't want a house? Should my money be deducted? And that's where the conning scheme comes, that these people are not serious, because we have so many people who are employed, they have houses. True or false?
Mm-hmm.
And I may want to use my money in another way, but we are having a dictatorial, let me call it a dictatorial regime that wants to dictate to us how we use our money. If indeed they are honest with this housing levy, I will suggest that the Kenya Kwanza government, they should start conducting the county economic forums they used to conduct during the campaign period and ask people, do you want houses? Even before we go to houses, right now, the situation in this country as we are, housing is not a priority to majority of Kenyans.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we hit the majority? Why don't we hit the stake, or what majority of Kenyans want?
Yes.
So, in my view, I'm finding it that the government, they want to keep us in limbo, in waiting, that each and every time they come up on a platform,
yes,
they'll have to blame someone. Like right now, they are blaming the courts. And even come 2027, take it to the bank, they'll blame the courts. Because that's how they are operating.
Yes.
Right now, if you look and hear keenly what these Kenya Kwanza leaders are saying, they are blaming the former regime, President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yes.
Now, allow me to ask you, what's the difference between this government and the last government? We had William RUTO as the deputy president in the last government, meaning that any decision that was being made, he was part of it. We had the Justin Muturi that we are scrutinizing right now as the head of the legislative arm of government at parliament, meaning that any bills that were being implemented, he was part of it. The Kimani Chungwas and the Ndindi Nyoros, they were head of the committees at the National Assembly.
The previous government, yes.
Understand?
Yes.
Now, this is very clear that we are having a government that is not ready to operate. They want to play blame games. And it's the first time we are seeing such kind of government. When Uhuru took power, there's not a single day, I think he blamed President Mwai Kibaki. The same thing happened to Mwai Kibaki. He said that we had a problem and we have to sort it. Now, going forward, we don't want blame games. That's what I can say. We want things to be done according to the rule of law,
yes,
the Constitution of Kenya, and let the Kenya Kwanza government fulfill their promises.
All right. Ruth, I want us to go back to the notes then, yesterday, of this man called the AG. Good. And I'm going to start reading them to you, by the way. Now, this is exactly what he said. Now, the AG assured the committee that all the issues that were raised by the courts in striking out the housing levy had been dealt with in the proposed bill, but then it challenged them to make the bill even better, as they have the mandate to do so. Just hold on. There's a direct quote that is coming up. We have the view that the bill addresses all the issues raised by the courts, but like I said, these are just proposals, and the House has the powers to make further amendments to the bill even better. Those are his quotes. So we start from there. This is the AG seated with this particular committee, and is telling them that indeed I'm challenging the lawmakers in the National House to make this bill even better, based on the proposals that have come from the courts or what the courts highlighted. Now, Ruth, I want to take you to the first proposal or the questions that were asked about this particular housing levy. Somebody said, this is the thing is, I do not understand how somebody who has never contributed for a house will get a house. They asked it, and if you remember, towards the end of last year, when the courts were declaring unconstitutional, somebody said, but how is it possible that any other person who has never contributed for a house is going to get that particular house?
Yes.
Because it's sort of like a raffle for you to get it, that you sit back, somebody contributes, but the person contributing will never get the house. The chances of that. That's when they went in and ratified and said, now everybody has to contribute on this particular one. We're still waiting to see the formula they're going to use to have every other Kenyan contribute to the housing levy. But the premise of this particular housing levy, Ruth, was not for every other person to contribute. If you did hear what the president was drumming support for, he said that these people with money, if you have a pay slip, you're going to help contribute to help those without pay slips to get this money. Now, let me ask a question, Ruth. Who doesn't have a pay slip in this country? There are so many people who don't have a pay slip in this country.
Absolutely.
I mean, farmers might not have a pay slip, and we do know that the biggest employers in the country are farmers.
Yes.
The greatest GDP for the country is essentially from farming, agriculture in this country. I mean, let's start with that particular one. Is it beyond reason that this particular proposal can go to the National House and can come out without the AG striking it, without members of parliament essentially striking it? What is that? Because that's what the courts asked.
First and foremost, the biggest, and I've always said it, the biggest mistake we made as Kenyans is we gave both the executive and the National Assembly to one party, to one side, because the government of the day, which came in through Kenya Kwanza, is also majority in parliament. And that is why we sometimes see it very difficult, and National Assembly is coming out as another arm of executive. Because we are not seeing the National Assembly that used to challenge and really oversight some of the executive's decisions.
Yes.
But this housing levy issue, Kenyans have time and time again said it. We do not want it. It's not just when the current president, Dr. William RUTO, first brought it, but even when the former prime minister talked about the housing levy, Kenyans said, we don't want this thing. When the former president Uhuru Ruto talked about it, Kenyans said, we don't want this thing. So what is this issue of this housing levy that is really being forced down our throats?
Yes.
Why can't they take a sit back and ask themselves, how do we go about this housing issue such that we are able to ensure that those who cannot afford it have those houses, and in a manner that doesn't continue to already take away from what they have? If you go to the grassroots level, a number of them will tell you, I am already struggling to put food on my table. You want me now to contribute to a house. In some communities, they already have the pressure of building in the rural area. Now you want them to have pressure of contributing to a house in various areas, houses that they may not even live in.
Yes.
Very soon, I mean, where are our priorities? Where are the people's needs and thoughts? Because what is coming out is that this is a government want. We have not once seen Kenyans come out to say the courts have thwarted this bill, yet we as Kenyans, we are interested in it. We haven't seen that. Everyone else is actually saying we don't want this thing. So why haven't they taken time to go back and look at it and ask themselves, what is this about the housing levy that the Kenyans are so angry about? And what can we change? Secondly, for them to run ahead and have discussions about it in a manner that it is something that must come, whether it is through the door, the window, or the roof, without necessarily considering that it is still in the discussion stage. The courts have given their thoughts about this. The different lobby groups, the different civil society groups have given their thoughts about this. Media has given their thoughts about this. We are having discussions on the housing levy, futuristic discussions as if it has already been passed and it is something that's already in action, yet we don't even have a framework of it and no one actually wants it. When he talked about, or rather when he was asked, how are you going to ensure that no one buys these houses through proxies? Let me give you an example of the markets that have been done. A number of these markets that you see, what happens is that because these markets ideally that have been built are supposed to be for those people who have been in the market and it's just an upgrade. What happens is if Ruth Bolo knows someone who knows someone within the different city councils, then I am going to ensure I am able to buy 10 shops. So I list those shops. And if that particular item has not been changed years down the line, how are we going to ensure that it's not the same with the housing levy? We've been unable to do it with the markets. It's something that is happening. It is not a secret. So how are we going to be able to curb it when it comes to the housing? Who are these houses for? Again, because I say, we had this program when NHC Langata was coming. Those houses were ideally meant for the people from Kibera, so that then we can reduce that. But did it happen? No. So with this new housing levy that is being brought, and we keep on being told, because at first, as you say, the narrative was, and they kept on pushing the hustler versus dynasty narrative. So we are taking from the rich and we are giving to the poor.
Yes.
That is the narrative that is being sold,
yes,
which is a very dangerous narrative, because now it's going to increase insecurity, because what's going to stop someone from thinking that is a rich man? I have been told by my government I need to take from the rich man to give to myself. That is one. Two, these houses that we are saying are for the poor. Have we figured out how we are going to do? I mean, have we looked at what other countries did? Let's look at Rwanda.
And Ruth, I'm sorry to interject your point. I'm going to allow you to continue. Because the other question that the courts asked is that there is inadequate cash allocation for the category of houses targeting the majority. Because they're saying, well, we're going to build affordable housing. The question that was asked, what is affordable housing to these people that you're targeting to construct these houses for? Like you have no category. All it is that you're calling your project is affordable housing. But affordable housing for whom? Can you give us a category?
And also, Simba, I think one thing that we also forget is this has got to be a very holistic change, economical change. Because if I am unable to afford food on my table, my children are not going to school, and I cannot even afford a painkiller for myself, and you give me a house, what makes you think I will not rent it and go back to my Mabati house? What makes you think I will not do that? So there is still a lot of thought that needs to go into this. And we have spent over a year discussing about this. Since the president came into power, he has been reacting. He puts together an agenda, it's stopped by the courts, it's stopped by civil society, the Kenyans are uproaring, so he has to always go and firefight when he's not traveling, that is. He has to go and firefight. And so what happens to these other things that he's supposed to be doing? What happens to his other duties? What is happening to his other mandates?
Yes.
And so, and now I understand why he said he's not okay. Because how then are you okay as a Kenyan in such a country? We are at a place where Kenyans are no longer respected internationally. 5-10 years ago, in fact 3-4-5 years ago, it was almost unheard of for people to insult Kenyans on whatever space. We have seen heads of organizations fly to Kenya to apologize. It was unheard of. But right now, when we are not being insulted and told that our president is ruling the country via Bluetooth, we are being told that we are being forced to build houses. So people are asking us, so those photos we normally see on BBC and Al Jazeera, it is true that Kenya actually looks like that. But the person telling you has got electricity and water issues in their country, but we cannot have that discussion because whenever they go even onto our local media stations, all they are seeing is our president firefighting. So I think the government had a great vision, but they didn't take into consideration, like he said, what needs to happen between now and then to ensure that we are able to achieve it successfully and in consultation with the people and put together the necessary legal frameworks that are needed.
Pretty much. I'm going to come to you, Ephraim, on this as well. And there's something that I want us to weigh in on here on this particular one. I'm still looking at the notes for AG Muturi yesterday. So the members of the committees, they first raised one question, and this is a question that was raised by Baringo North Member of Parliament Joseph Makilap, who was worried about the possibility of a person buying several houses through proxies, just like Bolo has said. This was his response, and I'm going to quote, I've also thought about it myself. It's a real possibility, but the ministry seems to suggest they will put in place measures to avoid that. Wait a minute. Once you read it, seems to suggest that they're going to put in measures to avoid that. But it's something that as a committee, you must tighten the laws to ensure that one person does not purchase many houses using poor people. There's the AG saying, I've also thought about it. But when you look at the responsibilities of the AG, is to come in and say, can you give me a law that you put in place that's going to make sure that nobody buys these houses through a proxy? Then when you're appearing before this committee, you will say, I've already advised the Ministry of Housing to do 1, 2, 3, implement this law. I mean, that's the AG speaking, who's saying, well, they seem to suggest. Is he leaving that job to the ministry? He's supposed to oversight the legal framework of that particular ministry. Should have he said something concrete here? Ephraim.
Just to echo the question that you have asked.
Yes.
Let me tell you this, Simba. The houses that are being built by this government, they are not going to be bought by the common man. They are going to be bought by the big boys and to be sold at a profit to the common people. It's going to happen. And to see an MP, I think he's in Kenya Kwanza, to have thought about it, it must have been something that they discussed somewhere.
Yes.
Go and ask him, so that they know what the government is planning to counter this. But
you think so, Ephraim? Go ask him.
Yes.
So was this a failure? Was this a failure for him not to tell them exactly what they're doing?
Fortunately,
yes,
they hit the point because they found that the government was not. They did not have the answer to that question.
Yes.
You understand? They did not have an answer to that question. That how are you going to regulate that someone cannot buy 3 houses using proxies? But along social media, I've seen discussion that you might have, as a parent, you have 3 kids. You understand? And you want to buy each and every one of them a house. Does that limit you? Does that limit you as a Kenyan? When you look at it normally, it's okay because you might have 3 sons.
Yes.
And you want to buy them houses.
Mm-hmm.
It's correct. But is it fair? Just to go back a little bit,
mm-hmm.
Let me say that the government of the day and its entire structure, as I started, I said it's in shambolic mode. They are operating in a shambolic mode.
Yes.
They don't know what they want, but they know where they want to go.
Yes.
So they are trying trial and errors. Trial and errors. For this housing levy to start, it was a populist strategy by William Samoei Ruto. He started by saying that those who are employed are going to contribute so that the unemployed can get houses. He thought that he will have the backing of the unemployed. Unfortunately, Kilimramba. You understand? Now, they had to go back to the drawing board, sit down and see how we're going to counter this.
Yes.
It's when they came up with the second version of the housing levy bill that all Kenyans are going to contribute.
But they have not. But again, something that is heavily missing, which is going to be found in public participation, is how to ensure that every other Kenyan contributes to this particular levy. And the modalities of that contribution, isn't it, Ephraim, is still not clear.
It's not clear.
Yes.
That's where I'm heading to.
Yes.
It's a populist strategy by the government. Now, when they meant that all Kenyans are going to contribute, it's for sure that there are many people who are employed that they don't have pay slips. You can be a farmer. You sell your maize, you get your money. You understand? You sell services. You are a saloon. You are a barber. You understand? Now they had to go back to the drawing board and look, how can we generalize that each and every Kenyan has to contribute this, and they hit at the taxes. They said, let's look at the basic commodities that each and every people use, so that in one way or the other, these funds has to be put in place. And in my mind, that's what they are going to raise these funds. You're getting me what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yes. So, just to narrow down, what I can say, that Kenyans, we are in dark times. When I started the show, I said I'm not happy because we are living in a country that's no longer called Kenya. We are living in a country whereby a deputy president can stand up on a podium to glorify illiteracy. You have heard the Gachagua saying that mimi mnajua sijasoma na huyo sijui nani amesoma, and I don't even think if William Ruto studied. Those PhDs, they need to be investigated. You understand? The same thing with Kindiki. That's what they are glorifying, illiteracy and glorifying poverty.
Yes,
something that cannot happen and we should not allow to happen in a country like Kenya.
Ibrahim, I want us to take a tiny breather, because once we come back, Ruth, the things that we're going to look at as well, that there's even the push and pull now between the members of parliament and the AG. Yesterday, Kimani Ichung'wah is quite clear. He's saying, well, this particular bit doesn't concern county governments, so it doesn't have to go to the Senate for discussion. Well, AG comes in and says, it has to go
to the Senate.
But then, at what point is he saying that? At what point, Ruth, is he saying that? Because he had to wait up to yesterday to come in and say, well, no, you go tell Kimani Ichung'wah that this particular bill right here, it concerns the counties. And in fact, he said, we will be cheating ourselves. So why did he let Kimani Ichung'wah and the rest of his team cheat themselves for this bill to go back to the courts to be stopped? Is when he can come back and say, well, no, we're going to cheat ourselves. So he knew very well that this was going to happen.
Yeah.
Why didn't he do something about it? Once we come back right here on the Morning Drift, reading the notes from the AG appearance yesterday in that parliamentary committee, talking about why the housing levy essentially is a failure currently as it is. And as we speak this morning, there's another one as well. What is his role then in just telling the president, you got to stop? Tell me fast. So I marshal up my team to come in and make them legally possible before you pronounce them. Or is it a ploy that the president is employing with the AG as well? Once we come back right here on the Morning Drift, my name is Simba Elijah Charles Keg.
Tuko hapa Kaptara, tunataka kusema asante sana RUTO Foundation kwa mambo mazuri ambayo wameweza kutufanyia leo. Wakaaji wa hapa Kaptara, wakaaji wa hapa Salawa, wakaaji wa hapa Mujukuo, mpaka wakaaji wote ambao wanatoka hapa Baringo County.
Naambia RUTO Foundation asante kwa kazi nzuri wanayofanya. Mungu awabariki.
Every time you play Lotto, 25% goes to the RUTO Foundation, which supports our fellow Kenyans through various causes. Thank you for your help. Together, we are changing lives.
Tere, mambo ni mawili, kufikisha, kumwaga na kurudi. Kulala ni mwaka mpya.
Bua muka we mse. Nini mbaya? Wewe kwani wani vile dereva anaendesha gari vibaya, lazima tususe. Anaendesha gari na kwa simu the whole time, hata angalia barabara. Tusimame. Wewe dereva wewe, mwaka iliyopita peke yake watu zaidi ya 3,000 walipoteza maisha yao barabarani kwa sababu ya tabia kama hizo. Hautatuangamiza tukiona.
Naomba msamaha, tutapeleka vizuri.
Si wameomba msamaha. Sasa tuende tusafiri kwa mwendo wa aste.
Dere Smart hufikisha abiria salama. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na NTSA kwa ushirikiano na European Union.
Save a Life is a non-profit organization that has taken the front line in transforming lives in the entire country. So far, we have transformed life of over 100,000 people through our programs, which include medical support, youth empowerment, street family program, feeding program, and climate change. Join us today as we transform lives. As we always say, service to humanity is service to God. Save a life, transforming lives.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Drift. It's exactly what we're doing this morning, reading the notes of the AG. And just before we went on break, I was saying that I will come back and emphasize exactly what the AG said yesterday when I was asked about the role of county governments in this particular bill for the housing levy. And if you remember, county governments were majorly or heavily excluded from it. And according to Kimani Ichung'wah, they've got nothing at all to do with the housing levy. But that's not the AG. So I'm going to read exactly what he said yesterday. We have a couple of notes that we go through this morning. This is what he says. I want to emphasize this because I did note in the memorandum of the bill that the sponsor of the bill said that it did not concern the counties. That's Kimani Ichung'wah. I think we'll be cheating ourselves. There is no harm in the Senate also considering this bill, and that if they make amendments, that there can be mediation on the bill. That's him. That we'll be cheating ourselves. But I want to read it for you again. That I did notice in the memorandum that the sponsor of the bill said that the county governments have got nothing to do with it. So that's why this particular bill, by the way, did not go back to the Senate. Key issues that were raised in the court as to why it had to be stricken off. So the AG comes down and says, I did notice. And if that happens, we'll be cheating ourselves. I mean, Ruth, this gentleman, they work for the same government. Why didn't he pick his phone call and say, hold on, guys, before you pass it, make sure that this bill goes to the Senate, because counties have got everything to do with this particular bill. Because again, it's common understanding that the president is saying that we're going to go everywhere in this country to build these affordable houses, is securing pieces of property in county governments. So the county governments, in one way or another, in fact, 100% when you think about it, have got everything to do with this affordable housing bill. But then, when you read these notes, Ruth, it's when he's saying we'll be cheating ourselves, and then he comes and reveals that he did notice that the sponsor of this bill said it doesn't have to go to the Senate.
One thing that is very noticeable is that there is lack of consultation within the Kenya Kwanza government. And we've not seen it with just this housing bill. We saw it even, when we were discussing the taxes at JKIA. The tourism department says, well, we want to make Kenya a destination for tourist weddings. We want to make Kenya a destination for ABCD.
Yes.
And the revenue authority says, that's awesome. Bring us all those people because we are waiting for them at the airport. The minute they come in, we want to check their goods. And we've had an uproar from tourists on that, and they're moving to other countries. Something that could have easily been discussed before they go ahead with it.
Yes.
Now, when you come to this housing levy issue, number one, no Kenyan has said this thing is a horrible idea. What is being resisted is the method in which it is being carried out, the implementation bit of it. And that's why I kept on saying, why don't we go and see how, number one,
yes,
it's been done in other countries, because there are countries who've gone this way and they've managed somehow to ensure that they achieve both the upgrade of the houses, and two, the houses actually go to those people who really need it, the common mananchi, but finally also, there's no resistance and uproar because they've made sure that they've covered all of the gaps. And that's why I'm saying there's no consultation within this government.
Yes.
For both of them to go and correct each other on national television clearly now proves what I'm saying. There is no consultation amongst them. And we need to, this is where I come back to our constitution.
Yes.
And now I am looking at the roles that Senate and National Assembly play. Mm-hmm. When we are relooking at some of these, when we are going through the next constitutional review, we need to ensure that we are keenly looking at the roles of Senate, because Senate ideally was supposed to be like the big brother to National Assembly. But if you look at how some of their roles are carried out, and if you look at some of the squabbles that go on between National Assembly and Senate, that is not the case. So I think the issue also comes back to the Constitution, whereby one house feels they are more superior than the other, and then that always brings in the tussle.
Yes.
But when we talk about locking out county governments, we are saying we are locking out the common mwananchi. Because the first line of duty, the first line of action, the first person that the common mwananchi faces is the person at the county assembly, is the people at the county governments. Those are the people, it's the county governments that will tell you this area where you want to build this affordable housing. Nobody is going to come here simply because the people of this area, because I think when they're having this discussion about the housing, the affordable housing, they are picturing Nairobi and Kiambu, which are very urbanized areas, and maybe Nakuru.
Yes.
And I won't even talk about Mombasa and the likes. I want to use just those three counties. They are not thinking about someone who is deep in Karachuonyo. They're not thinking about someone who is deep in Kakamega. They're not thinking about someone who is deep in Marsabit. So they need to have the consultations also with Senate, and they also need to further go and have consultations with county assemblies. And why I say this is because different societies and different communities have got different dynamics. You will bring for them affordable housing, and in that community, they do not believe that you're supposed to share the same complex with your mother-in-law, for example. So what will happen in those houses, because no one is going to occupy those houses because of their beliefs, I, as a businesswoman, I am going to buy those houses and list them to someone who's come to that county for a job opportunity. That is what is going to happen. And so we need to, again, I'm just emphasizing how crucial it is to continuously have consultations at all levels. That's why the fact that they decided intentionally to skip public participation, they should just be as, patient as possible, as everyone keeps on trying to figure out exactly how do you want to implement this housing, affordable housing.
Pretty much.
Discussion.
Ephraim, I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to be blunt when I'm asking about it. I mean, if you're the president and you sit right there watching your AG saying, I did notice that so-and-so said that we didn't have to take this bill to the Senate. And let's look at it in this, let's look at the implications now, Ephraim. The courts essentially stopped further collection of the housing levy from Kenyans until this particular bill is essentially proven constitutional. So public participation has to go on. And in reality, when you look at the parameters of public participation, by the way, the courts, we have no framework in this country for public participation. I mean, we never know how long it's going to take. Currently, as it is, by the way, that's when they're going through public participation. The second issue as well, that now it has to go back to the Senate, all right? Guess what? I mean, once this bill goes back to the Senate, it's up to the Senate to actually say, now we have a bill here that we got to talk about, and you may never know how long it's gonna take at the Senate. And remember, it has to go back to the National Assembly, talked about, concluded before it go back to the Senate, before it's again now brought back to the National Assembly. So when you look at that, it might be forever. I mean, if you're counting months, you're counting days in it, and the courts here have stopped the collection of the housing levy, it means that whether you like it or not, that gentleman or any other person that you've given a job to help you strategize your agenda implementation, in, for lack of a better word, they're sleeping on their job. Case in point, if you read today and see your AG saying, I did notice that Kimani Ichung'wah said that doesn't have to go to the Senate, and we'll be cheating ourselves, this will go back to the Senate. What will you do as the president, Ephraim? Because here it is now. The Kenya Federation of Employees already written to all employers in the country to stop deducting the housing levy from Kenya's pay slips. In fact, majority of them again did hit to that because they are not breaking the law, they are following the law. As far as they know, deduction of housing levy was stopped. But here's the thing again, there are projects that are currently ongoing, which essentially means that you stop deduction, the construction of those projects essentially also stops. I mean, where are you going to take your anger to as a president? Is it not the AG and any other person who's in the legal system?
You have started by asking that if I was the President William Ruto.
Yes.
First thing first, I don't want to be President William Ruto.
Ephraim, well, imagine you were, and your AG, and your AG is Justin Muturi.
I don't, character-wise, and how I do things, President William Ruto is not my role model. I will start from there. Second thing, you have said that there are no legal frameworks in which the public participation are normally done.
Yes.
Simba, there are very good frameworks in which public participation has been done, but they are normally done in things that benefit the politicians. You remember the BBI? How many rallies did we have?
Countless.
During the campaign, how many economic forums did the Kenya Kwanza manage? They managed to go 42 out of 47 counties. You understand?
Yes.
Now, right now they're in government. Washapata what they wanted. You get me?
Yes.
Now they don't want to do what they used to do. So the notion that there are no legal frameworks of public participation in this country is very wrong. There are, but the question is, when is the right time? It's during campaign to them. During campaign, you'll even see them carrying public participation for a whole day. The president will not be sitting in State House or flying to Germany where his other headquarters are.
Yes.
You understand? To the AG and the Ichung'wah issue, as I started, and I'm emphasizing this, we don't have a government here. We don't have a government. In definition of government, it's a system that works that there is cooperation consultation, something that we don't see in this government. Because today, you'll see Musalia saying one thing, tomorrow Gachagua saying the opposite. Today, you'll see Chungwa, the AG thing, saying one thing, then tomorrow, Chungwa saying another thing. So that's a proof that we don't have a government here. Then, on the issue that the county government doesn't have to do with the housing levy, according to Chungwa, he must be ignorant and cynical, according to me. He must be ignorant. Right now, if a common mwananchi is in problem, the next person is in contact with is the common MCA. And if I may ask, where are they going to build those houses? In hot air or where? These houses are going to be built in counties, meaning that a governor or a senator has to oversee how these processes are going to be done, and even allocate land in some cases. And recently there was a debate that how does someone own a house in a land that is public land? These are some of the questions we are asking ourselves. How do you own a house that was built on a public land? Are you getting me, Bwana Simba? Yes. So those are some of the questions we are asking ourselves. Now, the AG and the Chungwa issue, to me, I'm seeing it in a political view.
Yes.
Remember, as I said, these people have political aspirations, both from Mount Kenya. Now they are trying to make each other fail. So instead of working,
is that what you're reading?
Yes.
Between Muturi and Kimani Ichung'wah.
Kimani Ichung'wah, they are making each other fail.
Do you find it difficult that they didn't even, call each other into a meeting?
That's what I'm saying.
Before they table this bill in Parliament.
They are trying to make each other fail, so that in future they have the records of it and how they performed in their offices.
Yes.
And right now, if you take a look at the Mount Kenya leadership, we don't have a definite leader to say that this is the person who is leading the region. So they are trying to take that mantle. And in politics, there's always this rule that for you to rise, someone has to fall.
But what about, do you read that Ichung'wah's responsibility is to make sure that everything the president essentially wants to get support in the National House is essentially supported by majority of the members of the president's party? I mean, that is his role. The role of oversighting it, though.
It's not Ichung'wah's role.
Yes.
I remember when we started the show, Gloria here said that we have a government that has taken over the legislative arm of government. That even right now, if William Ruto wants to change the constitution to root 20 years through parliament, it will happen. It will happen. To change the constitution so that it rules forever, it will happen.
Yes, but Ephraim, on this particular issue for the housing bill, I mean, it's a big issue for the president, and the only role that Kimani Ichung'wah essentially has is to make sure that when it gets to the National House, then it's got majority support. Is that not his role? So when it comes to removing blame from this essentially not being lawful, it's going to just be with the man who essentially is supposed to make sure that when the Ministry of Housing and National and Urban Planning essentially was drafting it, was to make sure that it follows the precincts of law, which is essentially the role of AG.
Simba.
Now,
yes, Ruth.
Just a quick note on what you have asked,
Yes.
and borrowing from what Ephraim is talking about. Because Ichung'wah's role is to make sure that it goes through the assembly, then he has to make sure that it meets the necessary criteria, so that when it gets there, his work is very easy. But right now, even if it goes through, I can assure you someone will go back to court.
Also, but when you're looking at it, just to make clear the role for one Kimani Ichung'wah, essentially when it comes to the National House, I mean, you and your president essentially promised the biggest development agenda in the country, the housing, the affordable housing plan, and you have to make sure that it goes through and faster that.
But
when it comes to removing yourself from the blame, because I asked, I mean, when the president is looking at this back and forth now between Kimani Ichung'wah and the AG, it's going to say, well, who is to blame here? I mean, the AG's role is to make sure that even before that bill is essentially tabled at the National House, it has gone through the entire process. I mean, Kimani Ichung'wah only receives it when it's already been tabled in Parliament. You like to think that the AG's job is to make sure that indeed, make sure that it's gone through public participation, make sure that every other question that the courts are going to ask have essentially been drafted in that particular bill. Take it to the public participation, come table it in the National House for Kimani Ichung'wah and the rest of the majority whip in the National House to whip their members of Parliament to support it.
Simba, that is the ideal situation.
Yes.
That is how it is supposed to happen.
Yes.
But if you look at how most of the bills are, go through, there's a lot of politicking that goes behind it. We've had members of Parliament say not once, not twice that I was going to the washroom and someone bribed me.
Yes.
We've had someone say I was picked by a helicopter in my rural home at 2 a.m. in the morning just to come and ensure that this goes through. We've had some of them saying that if so and so is actually in the school board that my child goes to, and so if I don't pass this thing, so there's a lot that goes behind closed doors, and that's why I'm saying
yes.
What needed to also have happened is that communication between the two, and that's why I agree with Ephraim that if the reason as to why there's no that communication between the two is lacking is probably because of kingpin politics, and so I strongly believe that. Even for Kimani Ichung'wah, in as much as constitutionally, he does not have to ensure that the bill is okay, is type-proof, but politically, and for it to pass, he needed to have said, actually, for me to make sure that this goes through easily, make sure you have included this and this. Have you considered ABCD so that you make my work easier when it comes to the assembly? You make it easy for me to be able to consider that.
Just before I come to you, Ephraim, I'm going to come to you shortly. I mean, on this particular issue, I mean, let's make sense of it. And that's why I'm saying that if you want to blame anybody, then it has to be the AG as well. Ruth, let's take a look at it like this. I mean, it's not the very first time that the courts are making themselves clear on a housing levy. It was done in the previous government where Dr. President William RUTO was the DP. And guess the man who was the main petitioner in this particular case? It was Okiya Omtata. And he looked at the president in his face and he told him, you see, President, we are not against what you're trying to do, but just do it lawfully. Your predecessor, President Uhuru Kenyatta, tried to implement this. We took him to court, we struck it off. And he also promised him, if you do not follow the law in making this, we're going to go to the courts and they're going to strike it off. Case in point. And I asked you, Ruth, this, that if you wanted notes in terms of supporting your president, the notes are there. The notes are there. They are there from the previous government. You would have just gone in and looked at public participation, questions that were asked on this, up to the point where the previous administration made it voluntary. Why was it made voluntary? So that you fix it. Whose failure is that? Is it not the AG's failure?
It's the AG's failure. And that's why I said when we began, the former president has tried to bring the affordable housing issue through the levy. The former prime minister also tried having that discussion. And now the president, clearly, they are just not interested in finding out why is it going wrong. This is a case scenario from me, how I see it. It is an issue of the government trying to show we can do it and we will do it through whatever means, in whatever way you said. And we have cultivated a culture where, executives feel like they are above the law. And that is not the case.
Simba, just to add on, I would want to blame the AG, particularly on this loan. I wouldn't want to blame the AG. As I started, I said that the AG is a junior member in this government and he receives instructions. So even his appearance yesterday and even how he answered the question, it was some sort of public relationship stunt to give an impression that they are trying to listen to the people, which they are not. So that's why my entire blame goes to the entire government.
On this particular one?
On this particular one. It goes to the entire government. Even if, let's go back a bit. Let's just go before the elections. The AG joined the Kenya Kwanza a month to the general elections. True or false? When he was still with the azimio people. So that's a clear indication that he never knew the plan of this government, how they were going to implement it. It was there for political reasons. Just come for political reward. He joined the government a month to. And you know a government cannot be formed 1 month to elections. You get me?
Yes.
Yes. So that's why I'm taking the entire blame to the government. Because I'm sure when he joined the government then, towards the 2022 general elections, he never came with his own manifesto. He was given a manifesto that this is what we're going to do. So number one, he never had enough time to research on how they're going to be implemented.
Yes.
Number two, he never had an overview of how such kind of a manifesto is going to be implemented. You're getting me?
Yes.
So that's why I'm taking my entire blame, particularly to the head of the government, William Ruto. I don't want to blame the AG.
Yes, but here's the thing, Ephraim. But the weight of this particular issue. But are we also forgetting that it was the Speaker of the National Assembly when this particular issue was brought to the National House, and members of Parliament went in and gave reasons as to why it had to be voluntary. In fact, they shut it down. Now, so if there was a man who was supposed to make this successful, I mean, Ruth, it has to be AG Muturi.
And Simba, that is now you are agreeing with what I said at the beginning, because I said it's not his first time to be in public office. It's not his first time to interact with this document. And like Ephraim is saying, this is a man who got this job through political means, right? And it's coming out that way. Kenyans have been questioning it, and they have been, some of these appointments, and they've been refuting it, but it's coming out that way. Now, why I strongly believe, and I said at the beginning, is that this is a man who is protecting his job, a fanatic of the president, and ensuring that his political interests and political relevance are sustained, is exactly because of those reasons.
Yes.
You've been through that process before, you've had and seen and interacted with that process. So you know what it's like. You've had the sentiments about it.
Yes.
You know what the procedures are like. Why aren't you doing it? Why are you not doing it? So for me, it seems like he is a fanatic of the president, and he then, you know, when you're a fanatic of someone, Simba, you will not tell this person that this is wrong. The person will tell you, I need you to jump over this fence. You will not tell the person, but it has a gate. Why can't I just open the gate? You'll be like, fine. How high do we need to jump? And that's why I strongly believe it is not that the AG does not know how to do his job. It is that that is not where his mindset is. His mindset is ensuring that what the president wants goes through, no matter whether or not it is. If the president wants it done faster than it can because of the processes involved, then that's exactly what I'm going to do.
It's like we are having an AG reasoning in William Ruto's head.
Like
his body, it's the president's body, the AG's body, and William Ruto's head.
Let's try and understand that particular the legal environment behind the president. By the way, the surrounding the president. I want to bring to your attention of another man who's got a very important office, just in sort of trying to assist state legal agencies to come up with proper framework, especially when it comes to advising the president, or even what to say, how to say it. One, J. Mose, who's now the Solicitor General. Let's look at exactly what the Constitution envisions his job to be, and I'll read it. That indeed, when you're trying to make sense of what that particular office does, it defends the laws enacted by Parliament as is currently being witnessed in the Housing Levy and the Securities Laws Amendment Act of 2014, which is still a controversial bill to date. It is the Solicitor General who must decide whether to appeal, all right, or to accept the laws in cases involving the government. Case in point, there's already they talk about how the government is going to appeal on the decision by the court to stop the collection of the housing levy. But just hold on. It goes on to say that if indeed you look at what his proper responsibility is, they are vital, or the Solicitor General is vital in assisting the state legal agencies. In fact, it goes on to say that no Solicitor General is happy when the government loses a case. You hear that? They're not happy. So, Ruth, but please indulge us this morning as well, just before I cross over to Ephraim. I mean, you have a Solicitor General, you have an AG, and you've gone to court. It has been lost. So your work is to make sure that the moment you go back again, this thing is going to be clean and decent. But you know, the headlines that we received the other day is that the president has given more powers to the AG in terms of these issues. So you sort of feel like the Solicitor General has been his powers have been cut. Is that what it is? Is that what we're saying now?
That is exactly what it is. And that is why it is not the Solicitor General who first spoke, but the Attorney General is the one who went to, apply for that ruling, against it to be set aside. It is Muturi who went and applied for that. It was not the Solicitor General. And that is why, again, I said, he needs to be politically relevant. How is he going to do that if he's not ahead of this thing?
So whose mistake
so
is
the president has definitely given more powers to the Attorney General.
Does it not look then like the president is the one who's supposed to be blamed in this entire issue?
Exactly.
Because then if indeed, Ephraim, but just if you can jump in at this point. I mean, if you know very well that you have men here who are supposed to protect you legally, they're supposed to come in and back you, and you're losing cases in court, every other thing that you're declaring is getting declared unconstitutional, illegal. Are you not supposed to look back and say, maybe you should go home? I don't see whether you're helping me.
That's what we think, that you should look and say they tell the AG and the Solicitor General to go home.
Yes.
That's what we see as normal human beings. But I don't think William Ruto is seeing that. And I might be forced to take another view on this.
Yes.
According to me, what I'm seeing, William Ruto is looking for a situation whereby he can find a way through the courts. And what is his way? Through bribing the judges. His shortcut. Because
he's very much against it, Ephraim.
No, those are just public stands.
He's been speaking against it.
Those are just public stands. Right now, if you are a thief, and you find a forum whereby people are discussing thieves, you jump into that forum and say, no, we have to deal away with thieves. You understand? And that's what the president is doing. In public barazas and public campaigns, he's saying that we have to do away with corruption in the judiciary. You understand? Because why is he saying that you have to do with corruption in the judiciary? Because William Ruto has been in government since 1992. So he knows it's there, and even he might have taken part in it. So right now he's coming that this thing might go against him. So he has to strike it early, that we have to deal away with it. But in this sense, he's doing it. You understand? So the president is trying to find a shortcut through all this. As I said, the current government doesn't have technocrats in matters building up a government.
Yes.
They have politicians. And the AG is talking casually from his talk, like the way he speaks, that they knew that people might buy extra houses and sell them at an extra fee.
Yes.
That's casual talk. Like, if you knew, what measures had you put in place? You understand? It's a government in business. And you might find that the solemn duty of the Attorney General, Justin Muturi, is to not represent the president in legal matters, like to advise the office of the president in legal matters. Maybe it's there to negotiate government projects, government tenders, something like that, according to me, because I know this government very well, how they operate. So when they strike some issues and things don't go, he just has to go for appearance and public stand that, we are trying to correct things. But just to cut my point short is that we are having this government, the president is a shortcut man. And see what tunajua. Let me just go to Kiswahili in a short way so that the Kenyans can understand me. All of us know whom William Ruto is. And you might find that even the meeting they had recently, the judiciary, who knows?
Simba, I think listening to Ephraim, we need to be a bit fair to the president, a bit honest to ourselves. Jay Muturi, as we said, he's been in parliament before. He's a public servant. He's a leader in his own right, which means he's got his own values and virtues. Now, even Jay Mose, as a Solicitor General, you've been given a job and you're not allowed to perform in it. Why are you still there? I want us to take a look back at Honorable Martha Karua, who resigned some time back. I think she was Minister of Finance, if I'm not wrong. When she said, I cannot be in a docket where I am not allowed to perform my function. I cannot be there as a puppet. So because of my values, I am going to step down and allow you to continue. Why aren't we seeing them do that? So we cannot entirely blame the president, even when someone does not have personal virtues. Yes, he has a hand to play in it.
Yes.
But we also need to let's allow people to take responsibility for their own actions.
But the blame has to be like this then. I mean, are we going to sit here and maybe try and imagine that the president is not sort of shocked about how there's a disarray in his biggest agenda for his government? It has to be there. By the way, even the chief agenda is not done and dusted because we have to go back to court again. They're waiting for what the government is doing on some of the issues that they rest on it. Yes. I mean, Maisha number is never going to get issued anymore. You know, there's some issues that are looking at you. I mean, the president is looking at it and saying, well, guys, but you have a reference. Why can't you help me implement this?
I'm almost tempted to think that this is a distraction of a bigger issue. Anytime in Kenya there has been a government office that has been on fire or,
Yes.
or an entity or there's been a scandal of some sort, it's an entertainment and lifestyle scandal, let me call them that, it's always been a cover of a bigger issue. Later on we come and realize that, while this was going on, someone was stealing somewhere and we have billions and millions of funds that are missing.
Yes.
So we've always witnessed this. But as you rightfully said, if you're the head of state, you're the head of a manifesto that you put together or a strategic plan that you carefully crafted
Yes.
and explained to the common mananchi
Yes.
and rallied your populist support behind that, and you're seeing it is not happening and you're not doing anything. One thing I will give credit to our president for is that man is smart. So you will not tell me that he doesn't know what is going on and he doesn't know how to fix it.
No,
He has simply been given on a silver platter the escape route of why he has not performed and why he needs another 5 years
Yes.
to ensure that he's
Yes.
able to do the things he didn't do in the first 5 years.
That's it. So here's a question. You employ a permanent secretary, you employ a CS in those particular ministries, you employ a solicitor general, you employ the AG, and by the way, with the way it goes, these are men and women who are directly in support of your agenda. So I like to think that when they meet together, when they're coming up with this policy that you task them to come up with, they will make sure that they do their job to their entirety. I mean, Ruth, are we going to sit here and then say, wow, that up to now, with what the housing levy is going through, with what the Maisha number is going through, with what the chief docket is going through, 2 years down the line, that the president hasn't looked and said, maybe Simba, you need to go home. This is not working.
He has not done that. And why he has not done that? Let's look at Hustler Fund. When Hustler Fund first came in, everyone was asking, because it also has some pension, I think, aspect to it.
Yes.
It's got, and Kenyans kept on asking, and different stakeholders were asking the
Yes.
president and his team, fine, you're telling us about this, where are we getting this money from? What are the frameworks that you have put in to ensure that, Hustler Fund is legal, to ensure that you're able to, but he was looking for a quick win. So whether or not there were holes to be poked, whether or not there were legal frameworks to be done, for him it was tuifanye hiyo ingine tutasota utuko mbele, because he is looking for quick wins. And that's why I am saying it's not that he doesn't know what is going on, and it's not that he doesn't know how to fix it. It's that he doesn't see the need to.
Yes, or is not getting advised. Is he getting advised? But which is what I want to take a minute on this, Ephraim, because we only have 3 minutes left for this discussion. When all this is going on, why would the president again come in and issue a directive to the Ministry of Education to have all fees then collected on the e-citizen, knowing very well that he's fighting his major policy in government? You like to think would have said, well, is it okay for me to go tomorrow and tell all Kenyans now, taking their kids to the national schools, to pay school fee via the e-platform, e-citizen platform? Ephraim, make us understand. Why would you do that? Knowing the fire that you're going through.
Populist tactic. As I said, principals are collecting extra money, but they are delivering the education to students. You understand? Now, in an effort to try to sell the notion that we are trying to lower the cost of living, they have to pay the fees through the government, which is maybe 56,000. Not the extra one that the principals normally charged. He has won. Like, people have seen that anyway, the school fees has gone down. Then going back to Gloria, I've heard her saying that William Ruto is smart. He's not. William Ruto is a conman, political conman. And even the people who supported him, they were bought. So right now, if you want to define the Kenyan government right now is William Ruto. Because the AG, during the campaigns, we used to hear these stories. He was given such amount of money with a promise to get a certain docket. You understand? So that's the type of a president we have. A conman president, a political conman. And to cut all the story short, my message to Kenyans is that we don't have a country right now. We don't have a country right now. We need to stand and fight so that future generations will be proud of this country. But if we continue sleeping, bwana itafika 2027. I don't want to mention we will be similar to which country, but you know it.
That's it. All right, Ruth, take 15 seconds, please. Sheila, you can start running your bed if you can, so we can step out of the studio this morning on this particular segment. Why would then the president continue making these declarations, knowing the fire that he's facing?
Like I said, the president is looking for quick wins, but I'd like to just advise him to realign his priorities. He can still get quick wins by doing the right thing. He can still achieve his agenda through consultations. He still can. And just to let Ephraim know, even a conman has got to be smart to ensure that he actually, at the end of the day, he calls people. So I think Kenyans now need to speak up through the various stakeholders, from private sector to civil society. And the president needs to listen more. I know he's always said he's listening, but it's one thing to just hear and it's another thing to listen and do something about it.
Now let's call him a conman, not smart.
We gotta end with that. We gotta end with that and take them back to the time that you joined us right here at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms, wondering why does this situation exist, knowing very well that there have been men and women who have not dealt with this issue once. Some of them are facing it maybe 3 or 4 times. Even the PS, by the way, faced it. Could have been the first one to tell them, it's not going to work. We take a tiny breather. Once we come back, let's talk about positioning the modern man. What are we losing as modern man, and how can we get ourselves back to it? Once we come back right here on The Morning Drift. Ruth, Ephraim, thank you very much for coming by. All right.
Jamaa jo, mazena inflation jo na hii mafuta venye mepanda jo, mmefika at the right time. Mimi nakwambia wachezaji saa hizi tu ni kutoka hapa, kuingia mtaa, kutengeneza sima, wadishifiti, alafu tutane grau.
Leo tuko katika center inaitwa Kimta, ambapo hapa ni sehemu ambapo wanafunzi ama vijana wadogo wanakuja hapa kusoma, wanakuja hapa kukuza talanta yao, na wanakuja pia kujiinua kielimu.
Now through Kimta and the groups like Tatua Tatu, through pads, wasichana wataendelea kuendea shule vizuri, at the same time watakuwa healthy.
Yote ni kwa hisani ya Tatua Foundation. Na wakati wote ambapo unacheza Tatua Tatu, kumbuka kwamba 25% inakuja kusaidia masuala kama haya. Kwa hivyo endelea kucheza Tatua Tatu.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park, fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
Mambo ni mawili, kufikisha, kumwaga na kurudi. Kulala ni mwaka mpya.
Muka we mse. Nini mbaya? Wewe kwani wani vile dereva anaendesha gari vibaya? Lazima tususe. Anaendesha gari na kwa simu the whole time hata angalia barabara. Tusimame. Wewe dereva wewe. Mwaka iliyopita peke yake watu zaidi ya 3,000 walipoteza maisha yao barabarani kwa sababu ya tabia kama hizo. Hautatuangamiza tukiona.
Naomba msamaha, tutampeleka vizuri.
Si wameomba msamaha. Sasa tuende tusafiri kwa mwendo wa aste.
Dere Smart hufikisha abiria salama. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na NTSA kwa ushirikiano na European Union.
Are you an SME looking for a media partner? Look no more, as Lookuptv got you covered for all your visibility and marketing needs. We at Lookuptv understand your business needs and want to work with you on your marketing journey, giving you solutions that will take you to the next level. Call us today on 0707 572 358 or send an email to sales@lookuptv.co.ke and kickstart this amazing journey. Welcome to Lookuptv, your official SME media partner.
What about mambo fantastic if not scholastic? Chota kuchota na Hetia Supermarket imerudi. Ukifanya tu shopping ya shilingi 1,000, wewe unaingia kwa promotion ya chota kuchota na Hetia Supermarket. Watu wanaendelea kushinda ndani ya Hetia Supermarket. Mbona tata kitoko? Wewe na umeshinda nini? Yote. Sasa wewe unalala. Karibu ndani ya Hetia Supermarket uweze kuchota kwa wingi kabisa. Watu huko wanasema nini? Nakwambia kwamba chota kuchota. Unangoja nini?
Magari 7 za kushindaniwa, TV, fridge, microwave, shopping vouchers, school fees vouchers, instant prizes na zawadi zingine kemkem. Chota kuchota imethaminiwa na Hetia's Oven Fresh Bakery, Gigabyte, Mount Kenya Milk, Clover's Food Products, Velvex, Magic Drink, Pwani Oil, Arenco, Fruit Juice, Masterchef, Toilex, Coolsip, Mika, Wash Ultra, Philos, Pristol, Nivea, My Choice, Ushindi, Fresh Fry, Arimis Jelly, Cabernet Water, Dettol, Ketepa, Meta, Glucose, Coca-Cola, Rosy Tissue, Big Giant, Elbins, Unilever, Fresh, Unga wa Dola, Blue Band na Pasta Star. Shindano la chota kuchota linaanza tarehe 1 Disemba hadi tarehe 10 Februari mwaka 2024.
Hetia Supermarket, a world of choice.
Leo katika hapa kazi tu tunaangazia biashara ya magari. Hapa kazi tu yo yo. Tuko hapa ndani ya Windsor Motors, tunataka kuangalia hii biashara ina changamoto gani.
Kuna mahitaji clients wanataka na due to finance restrictions hatuwezi leta magari zote.
Je, wewe ambao uko hapo nyumbani ambao ungependa gari, ni njia gani ambazo ungeweza kutumia ili uweze kujipatia gari lako?
For as long as we were willing to wait for 45 days, 60 days, letea gari ile specs unataka.
Gari kwa kawaida ni kama mkate, inakuja mpaka na karatasi.
All right. Welcome back to the Morning Drift. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. The next point of our conversation is one of those issues that I hold close to my heart. Yeah. I say I normally have sort of a traditional and modern upbringing. That's the best one you can ever have. I usually argue from that perspective. that you know exactly how things used to be traditionally or how they should be, and you're sort of aware of where they're turning to. So when it comes to flicking that switch of getting the perfect balance, if it's there, then you do know exactly where to start from. I want to introduce you to a conversation that is going to make you want to take out your pens and papers so you can write down a couple of notes. And it's coming from this book, Repositioning the Male Man, and they say, for healing of families, societies, and nations. Canon. Rosemary. I'm going to hold it like this. We're going to talk about exactly where you can get this book and what this book is essentially talking about. And we do have then the author right here in the studio with us, so we can talk about repositioning the male man. That's it. And that definition is exactly what we're going to get into. All right, joining her then in the studio, we do have Reverend Engineer Sospita Bogo as well. Rosemary, how are you doing?
Very well. Thank you, Elijah, and thank you for the invite.
Happy to have you around. Engineer, how are you doing, sir?
Oh, quite well, Elijah.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
You know, I like this particular setup because I'm a young man. I like to think so. And so what we're going to listen to now is an introduction to this particular book. Just like I said, I come from both worlds. Got a bit of the traditional upbringing and it got a bit mixed with the modern upbringing. So I'm in between. I'm aware of how things should be happening. Rosemary, let's start by this. What do you mean by repositioning the male man? Why do we need to reposition the male man?
Thank you, Elijah, for that inquiry.
Yes.
It comes in very handy because the choice of the title is very intentional and comes from a background of the fact that, as you have well stated, there are fundamentals. And you have said you come from both worlds. The truth is that the fundamentals that whether traditional or modern, we have found ourselves in the world, which is a world of God. Because we don't create ourselves. We are created by God.
Yes.
And He, the Creator God, spelled out His fundamentals on how we ought to live within His created world. And we as created beings. So the history of and the background to this book is that obviously there is a drift. And that resonates well also with the setup of this particular show.
Yes.
There is a drift from that which was the original positioning design of God. Because of changes of issues that have arisen in the modern world, philosophical, ideological, runnings that have come and gripped man, and as well as, obviously, challenges that are related with that relationship of man and woman. The title, realistically, is intended to draw attention to the fact that we are speaking to the male man, not the female man. Because the male man has his distinctives, just like the female man has her distinctives.
And we're going to talk about that. That's an interesting one, because for any other person who's going to look at this particular introduction, they're going to see male man. Just before I cross over to Engineer Mbogo, who's the male man according to your book, Dr. Rosemary?
Yes, in Genesis, the beginning of the Word of God in the Bible, the book of creation, God created man, male and female, He created them. That is Genesis chapter 1 and verse 26. So man is both male and female.
Hold on.
Yes.
No, you don't rush over it.
Yes, yes.
So man is both male and female.
Female.
That's it.
Yeah, so God created the two genders, in other words. But this particular book is addressing the male gender.
That's what
and that is the intended purpose of drawing attention.
Yes.
That there was within the heart of God, the mind of God, the intent of God, a position that the male gender ought to take.
That's it. That's where we begin from. Let me start with also engineer Sospita in the building. And this book is dedicated to you. Essentially, that means then, I mean, when it comes to your position as a role as a male man in this particular relationship right here, you found your position. I want to ask you, from your perspective now, having gone through this particular book, and essentially it's the thoughts of her right here in front of you. What position has the male man lost in a family setup, engineer?
Thank you, Elijah. Position. I think the whole book addresses very many things.
Does it?
On the areas that the male man has drifted. If you allow me, because I know there's a subject which is very hot in our country now, the problem with a boy child. If you allow me to start there.
Does it?
That last year I was giving a talk and did research. And in my research, I found 26 points about the problem of the boy child. And what would surprise you is out of the 26 points, 20 points concerned the man, not the boy child. Only 6 points that the boy child had to work on, which means repositioning the male man would also help to answer the problem of the boy child, which means man has lost so many other positions that we can, it's not just one.
Yes.
There are many that the book addresses
yes.
all of them.
Yes, pretty much. But I'm going to come back to you on essentially what he thinks about a couple of topics here. I've looked at exactly what this particular issue is talking about. And I want to start like this then. When we're talking about repositioning the male man, I want to address one area that is essentially addressed here. It's by Reverend Engineer Sospita Mbogo in it. To you, what is the one position that a man has lost within the family?
Well, the one key position is, I wish I could put it maybe in three words.
Does it? Okay.
Silence, abdicating responsibility, and quietness, let's say. Yes. Silence, abdicating responsibility, and not taking authority.
It's a position that the male man is losing.
Yes.
Within a family setup.
In many places, in many families.
Do you agree?
Yes.
Dr. Rosemary, do you agree?
Yes.
Yes.
The reality is this is written from a lot of ministry.
Yes.
With families, a lot of conversations with women who feel abandoned.
Does it?
By the male figures in their lives, who feel they are together with their spouses, but their spouses are silent. Their spouses are not taking up the lead. And oftenly, the woman is being left sort of by lack of choice.
To take the lead.
Yeah, to take the lead or to take charge.
I was saying that by design, a woman is not supposed to take charge of a family.
By design, that is an abnormality.
How did God intend a family to be led?
Because God intended from the onset, the man leads the family. And I think if you are around me, I'll say a little bit of introduction here. In Genesis chapter 1, God created man, male and female, created them, and said, have dominion, multiply, increase, and subdue my creation.
Yes.
Man was given that responsibility, both male and female, the two genders. That means in the setting of society, we all have a pressing to commit from the heart of God and the mind of God. From Genesis chapter 1. We can go to class together, we will go to university together, we will get certifications, we will commit. And the female may be way above the male. And we will apply for jobs, and the female may become the CEO.
Get a better job.
And take care of lead the rest of the team. And that is in order, according to Genesis chapter 1.
Yes.
But whoever chooses marriage and chooses family Then we enter Genesis chapter 2.
Which says what?
And Genesis chapter 2, man was created first. And man was put in the garden. And God gave responsibility to man to name his creation. And after he had done all that naming, actually God looked at man and realized man was lonely, needed somebody who could accompany him, who could be of support to him.
Yes.
And he said, it is not good for man to be alone. I shall make for him a helpmeet. So therein steps in the female gender, in the order of marriage. So in Genesis chapter 1, we can compete at all levels, and we are equal before God. But when we come to Genesis chapter 2, before God we are equal, but in the marriage setup, it is ordered partnership, not equal.
Not 50-50.
No, it is orderly partnership.
You're gonna know a lot of people this morning, and we're gonna come to this.
Yes.
I mean, when we're talking about repositioning of the male man, you see what they say nowadays. Engineer, I gotta tell you this as well. You know what they say, yeah? That for marriage to succeed, you gotta look at it from a 50-50 perspective. That, well, you do 50, I do 50. Is that wrong in this perspective of repositioning of the male man?
Yes, let's still go to that Genesis chapter 2.
Yes.
God is a God of order. And in order to avoid confusion, he did not bring two people simultaneously. He brought the man. Not only did he bring the man, but the man also helped God in the creation story, in that man is the one who named all the animals, all things that God created.
Yes.
Man named them. And it says very clearly, whatever name he gave them, that was their name.
That was final.
And for all the creation and all those days, and even taking the man to the garden and showing him all the trees, this tree, this tree, this tree, and telling him this one don't touch, this one don't touch, it was only man up to that point. So that there is no confusion. And in any place where you have a group of people, unless there is a leader, there's going to be confusion. And God is not about confusion. So he created man all through until the last moment when he said, as my wife has said,
yes.
And then he said it's not good for man to be alone. He created the woman and brought her to man. That means to the leader. And he is the one who named her. This is a bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she came from man.
Yes.
That means the order of God is that there should be one leader, not two. Otherwise there will be confusion.
Pretty much.
That's why man is the leader.
That's it.
Can I add something?
Please do.
I think we also need to be very clear right from the onset. It is not about doings. It is about being. What do I mean by that?
What do you mean by that?
Because your question was 50-50.
50-50.
That is doings. Here we are talking about the being, the order, the position. The woman could as well do 99%. There is nothing wrong with that.
Is that what it is?
There is nothing wrong with that. Actually, if you read the Proverbs 31, which is part of Scripture, and what I like also saying when we talk about the Word of God is Genesis to Revelation is not words of God. It is the Word of God, which means whatever portion of Scripture you read, it is connected to make the whole. So if you read Proverbs 31, and you look at the woman, the noble woman, who is not spoken of by another woman or by herself, it is spoken of by a man and written in there by a man. She actually, if you look at the record of the undertakings, it's like she does everything. She goes and does embroidery, she does merchandise, she sets up her household in order, she dresses up her husband and her children, and the man
purchases a land.
Purchases land, and the man stands out there and he is reckoned as great at the city gates. So it's not the doings. The man could also do 99%, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the minute we don't identify the position, who stands at what entry point. That is where dysfunctionalism sets in. That is where confusion of roles comes in. That is where we lose the distinctiveness of who this male man is. The male man is the seed bearer. And being the seed bearer, and therefore naming, is the one who sets forth the entry into the seed and gives naming and dimensions of boundaries. Those must be distinctly spelled out. When that does not happen,
yes,
we have usurpation of power, we have abandonment of responsibility, we have confusion. And that is what is the reality in many families today, in communities, and of course in the nation.
Engineer, it might be very controversial. I mean, what you're saying here this morning, a majority of the times when you tell, and I would say, the modern woman about this not being about doings, but position, you sort of feel like it's an area that is challenged by modern women. It'll be like, we've gone to the same school, we've got the same job. A woman could be having a job that is paying better than the man.
Yes.
So the moment the man is not doing something that is equivalent to what the woman is doing in her family, then his position is challenged within that particular setup. Not just within the family, at work or whatever it is. Is that what modernity has challenged in terms of they've wrongly repositioned the man because we're looking at it from the basis of the doings, just like Dr. Rosemary said it?
Yeah, thank you, Elijah. You actually said it very clearly when you introduced yourself that you are from the two worlds, the modern world and the traditional world.
Yes.
But here we are talking not only any of them, either the modern or tradition, we are talking about the ideal according to God's creation. So if people are going to relegate God on the wayside and go their own way, then they are going to have all those challenges which you have mentioned there. But if they go through their creator who created them, of course, we know this example which is normally given.
Yeah.
When you buy a car, you get a manual for it. For you to know how to operate your car or operate a machine, to commission your machine, a cooking machine at home or whatever, washing dishes. The man was created by God, and therefore we should go to the Bible and see what God's idea for man and woman was. And it is, as she has said, orderly partnership, and especially Genesis chapter 2. You can go to Ephesians chapter 5 and chapter 6. You see the roles of man and woman clearly spelled out. So if you want to go your own way, keeping God on the wayside, then you have all the problems which you are talking about. But if you follow God's order, then things are fall in place right from the family. And let me tell you, if things fall in place at the family level, then it will go to the next level, to the church level, the community level, and to the nation level. But if it doesn't fall in place at the family level,
yes,
it will be chaos all the way through.
Pretty much. Now, here's the thing that I wanted to introduce. And we have 5 minutes just before we take a tiny breather and then come back and look at other areas of this particular book. But it's an interesting read, and we're going to tell you exactly how you're going to get your hands on it. There's another area here that is essentially been introduced, that when men are silent.
Yes.
Doctor, what is this chapter talking about?
Now, we move from Genesis chapter 1 and 2 to Genesis chapter 3. Because actually the entirety of the rest of the Bible is about the unfoldings in those 3 chapters of the Word of God. In Genesis chapter 3, we have an interesting encounter where the enemy, Satan, holds a conversation with a woman. If you are like me, when you went to your first learning, when you went to Sunday school or to your Christian school, you may have been told that when the woman was being deceived by Satan, Adam was not there. He was somewhere in the garden, looking at the trees and animals and naming them and enjoying them. Which is a lie. Because if you go through clearly and read that portion of scripture, Genesis chapter 3 and verse 6, the Bible says, when the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was pleasurable to the eyes and good for taste, she took some and ate. Then she took some and gave to her husband who was with her. So as the conversation was going on with the enemy Satan, Adam was right there. But what did he do?
Yeah.
He was mum.
Kept quiet.
He was silent.
Hold on.
Yes.
When we say she took the fruit to her, that's what the
No,
Bible says.
it didn't say it took to him. Gave to the husband who was with her.
Is that what it says?
Yes. And we can open up the Bible after the break. But let me tell you this. If you go back, yes, I told you were cheated, you were lied to, because you did not take time to see where the positioning is. Now, if you refer back to Genesis chapter 2, it is God who took the man to the garden. It is God who spoke to the man regarding which tree to eat and which not to eat. It is God who showed Adam.
The man.
So the man did not only hear, but he also saw. But the conversation here is with the enemy Satan, and the man is mom. Instead of intercepting and saying, Satan, I was there with God. I saw it with my 2 eyes. I heard it with my 2 ears. You are a liar. He was silent. Of course, the woman is not without blame.
That's it. Dr. Rosemary, hold on there. Hold on your thought right there, because I'm also getting re-educated here. So, as we go on this break, why don't you go back and read the exact words of that particular verse? Is it Genesis chapter 3, yeah?
Yes, verse 6.
Yeah, when it says, what does it say? Does it say took to or gave? Because then, when you start to interrogate then the semantics of that, you only give it to somebody who's right there with you. Sunday school and Saturday school. What did you do to me? Once we come back right here on The Morning Drift, we are still with Dr. Reverend Rosemary and Engineer Sospita as well, looking at exactly what it means by repositioning the male man. It's another re-education altogether right here on The Morning Drift. I didn't know.
Tere, mambo ni mawili, kufikisha, kumwaga na kurudi. Kulala ni mwaka mpya.
Muka we mse. Nini mbaya? Wewe kwani woni vile dereva anaendesha gari vibaya, lazima tususe. Anaendesha gari na kwa simu the whole time, hata angalia barabara. Mamiseni dereva tusimame. Wewe dereva wewe, mwaka iliyopita peke yake watu zaidi ya 3,000 walipoteza maisha yao barabarani kwa sababu ya tabia kama hizo. Hautatuangamiza tukiona.
Naomba msamaha, nitampeleka vizuri.
Si wameomba msamaha. Sasa tuende tusafiri kwa mwendo wa aste.
Dere Smart hufikisha abiria salama. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na NTSA kwa ushirikiano na European Union.
Leo tuko maeneo ya Kiambu County kwa hisani ya Tatua Tatu. Nakumbuka siku ya leo tuko sehemu inajulikana kama Usikimye Safe Haven.
This is a safe house for women wenye wametoka kwa maeneo ambayo wame experience gender based violence. So akikuja hapa tunawafanyia ile kwa welcome. Tunawaambia wako play safe. The perpetrators wenye walikuwa wanawafuata kwa umiza, they won't follow them here.
Sisi tunafuraha kwanza kabisa. Tatu tumeona wametufanyia shopping, like tunajua tuko mambo yetu itakuwa rahisi kidogo. Tena tunafurahia tunaona wametuletea tank. Actually tuna project ya kulima ambapo naona sasa tukistore maji kwa hizi tank. Asanteni sana tatu ya tatu.
Leo katika hapa kazi tu tunaangazia biashara ya magari. Tuko hapa ndani ya Windsor Motors, tunataka kuangalia hii biashara ina changamoto gani.
Kuna mahitaji clients wanataka na due to finance restrictions hatuwezi leta magari zote.
Je, wewe ambao uko hapo nyumbani ambao ungependa gari, ni njia gani ambazo ungeweza kutumia ili uweze kujipatia gari lako?
For as long as we are willing to wait for 45 days, 60 days, letea gari ile specs unataka.
Gari kwa kawaida ni kama mkate, inakuja mpaka na karatasi.
Listen, I'm going to read something to you that probably you've never taken note of. This is what I was looking forward to talking about repositioning the mailman. Now, I'm going to read for you Genesis 3, verse 6. Word after word. It says, so when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. And she also, that's what I want you to underline. And she also gave some to the husband who was with her. It's actually quite clear that the husband was with her right there. Okay? And he ate. So he was there from the start of the conversation to the end of the conversation. He was given a fruit, he ate it. That's why, if you go back to this book then, you go back to chapter 9, they're talking about when men are silent. Dr. Rosemary, you have your 2 minutes then before I cross over to Reverend Engineer Suspita this morning. What happens there when they get silent?
When men are silent, there is a vacuum that is created. There is a horror. There is space. And we know nature does not abhorred vacuum. So something will fill up that vacuum. And that is why the woman is not without blame. She usurped the authority of the man and spoke and acted when she should have even inquired, for instance, and asked, my husband, you are there. You are told. What I'm talking about, you only told me. What did God actually tell you? What did he show you? That clarification didn't happen. So she usurped the power, and that is when the punishment is given, she's not without a share of punishment, just as Adam has his share of punishment. Today, many homes, men are still silent. Inquiries are made of them to give direction to the family. They are quiet, they absent themselves, they completely walk away, some of them, or they sincerely just don't take responsibility. Yes. So what happens? The women who are left then begin now to take charge or to seek authority from other entry points. That is why there's a lot of deception, even in the spiritual realm, where many women who we know are the majority in church worship gatherings, some of them are easily deceived by the pastors that they listen to, because they have no authority over covering of the priest of the family, because the husband is the priest of his family. Yeah. He is the prophet of his family. Yes. He is the one who hears the lead word as far as the direction of the family is concerned. So when that doesn't become available, then other voices come in, other tributaries triple in, yeah. And as at the end of the day we realize we have dysfunctionalism, We have homes where there is no covering. There is no that dignity. Because the key role that the man plays here does not mean he has all the answers. But he aligns his answers with the authority of God. And I can move fast forward and say, when we come to the New Testament, because that was the Old Testament,
Yes.
and we look at Ephesians chapter 5, when eventually Paul talks about marriage, he says marriage is a mystery. It is about Christ and his church. And we know now that man takes the role of the leadership, like Christ takes the role of the church. But we remember also through the Gospels, Jesus was very clear. Constantly, as he stated what he stated, or did whatever he did, he said, I can do nothing unless it is instructed or said to me or directed of me by the Father. So the husband does not make himself the man. He is made and created a man.
A man, yeah.
So as he leads, his authority comes from God. So it is the instructions of God that the man is positioned to bring across, to lead the family, the society and the community. It is not his perspectives. It is not his ideologies. Because when it is his perspectives and his ideologies, then there will be selfishness. There will be control. There will be wanting things to be done my way. And that causes friction, tension, pulling apart. But when it is the authority of God, he will say, my Father God says. And he submits himself to that authority. So he becomes a model of humility. Not of human macho man, but the authority of the lawgiver who is God. That way you are a noble servant.
Fresh perspective. Now here's the thing, and I told you that I come from both worlds. There's modern and what is essentially a mix of knowing exactly how it was. Engineer, there's an interesting chapter here, that's chapter 7, of the purpose and value of the male man in society. That the purpose of man. You know what I'm told traditionally? That you only have one purpose as a man. Number one, provide for your family.
Yes, true.
Number two, lead that family.
Yes.
Leading in terms of protecting it, morally, socially, and that's that. That you should not be asked of anything extra as a man. That your purpose is just that, provide and lead. Lead can come in very different ways, protecting, morally, socially, money and all that. What is the purpose? And when you say the value of man in society, well, what is my value as a man in the society?
Well, as I said earlier, if the family functions well, is a basic unit that God created that flows out to the other units outside there. So that basic unit, what God spelled out for man to do, then it goes on expanding to the community and to the nation at large.
Yes.
Okay, and also, of course, that's why it starts from the basics. So the value of man is that just the way you put it yourself, for the family, he sets the boundaries. He's the one, whether spiritually, physically, or it's true. A man at night is one. If there is a noise or any attack, is the man who is supposed to go out there. And likewise, as it continues to progress, obviously, we know in a community, ladies or women or the wives are busy with the children, cooking and doing other chores there, but the man still has to look over in that community and see that there is no aggression to the community. So that is his value. That means a man is actually, his value is actually, let's say, protection.
Yes.
And when he is seen at home, nobody can dare trying to enter that home. because they know there's a man there. So even in the community, when communities come together, men are, the same way you put it, they are the warriors. They are the ones. And that way they are the ones who are sparing the boundaries for the community. And also, for whatever, even for the nation, the man was meant, to spare the boundaries. Yeah? When you go to that orderly partnership and see even the being of the woman and her other laws, apart from, a few cases here and there, the man is actually the one who is the protector. The protector, the provider, not only from the home, but even as you go to the community.
Yes.
So that is exactly the value. The man is valued, and he is seen as a symbol of the protection and a symbol of providing by the whole community. That is exactly the value of man. And as she has put it, obviously knowing that you have seen it in the Bible. Someone like David was a small boy.
Yes.
And he beats somebody who is very big, Goliath. How does that happen? How did that happen? Because David challenged Goliath. You come to me with the javelin and with your weapons, but I come to you in the name of the Lord. Which means even when man is providing protection, when you call the spiritual is higher than the physical. So when he knows that his higher power is a God, and the God has given him that authority, then when he calls upon God, even if you are two of you, you are going to beat 100 people who are coming to attack you. Because man has realized the position of God. That is it. So the value of man is for him to know, since God is a God of honor, what a man says, like let's say, if you want to bless, it is man who is supposed to bless. It's a man who is supposed to do what? You can give a case of Rebecca. Okay, Rebecca was not getting any children, but Isaac pleaded for her to God because he's the head of the family. He called upon God, and then she conceived. So you can see God knows how to go through honor. So since he knows the man is the head, you go through the head and not anybody else. So when Isaac prayed for Rebecca, she conceived. And therefore, that's the value of man, that God takes him as the leader and is the one you speak to. And then he'll be able to do all the other ordering of things. Because he's got authority from God.
Pretty much. This is an interesting question that I got to ask here, because I've seen that there's a chapter that is heavily covered here on 121 pages. And it's on chapter 6. Leading from the position of personal faith to stir the male man back to his position. I was brought up in a Christian background. It was heavy. I'll give you a personal example. The biggest mistake I would do as a young man, as a young boy, is to miss church. I would miss school. My mom would just be fine with it. It's like, you're not feeling okay, it's fine. But when it comes to Saturday, she would have a problem with me if I don't go to church. Saturday school, very, very important for her. And she would make sure that after church, I still go back in the evening. And then I come back and sit and tell her exactly what I learned. She would make sure every Saturday, up until I became a young adult, that's when I sort of like, hey, she might not have a problem with me missing church 1 or 2 days. To the point that when I go home, currently, it is sort of in my brain. And when my mom is around, when it's Saturday, hey guys, don't do anything. Church. She won't do anything to me right now because I'm a fully grown man. But then there was that thing about me being at church, her growing my personal faith. How is that going to help stir the man back to his position?
We have a classical example of Joseph, who is used in that particular chapter as an example.
Yes.
As well as in another chapter that is talking about man and the social welfare of a nation and a community. Joseph in the Old Testament went through a lot of tribulations. But whether in the hole where he was put by his siblings, or in slavery when he is in Potiphar's house, or later in prison, he knew his strength was God. And he stood out to be a leader in those very difficult circumstances. To the extent that when the Pharaoh has a dream that is very disturbing and all the magicians cannot interpret that dream, it is told of him, of a man who had helped the other prison warden and others who needed the background, they needed their dreams interpreted, but he was still in the dungeon of the prison. And they knew he's a man with a special spirit.
Yes.
And he was beckoned. And when he was told of the dream, he said, I cannot interpret. Interpretation comes from God. And he shall give, I'm paraphrasing, he shall give the interpretation. And he did give the interpretation as instructed by the Spirit of God. So what happens when we are nurtured in faith, right from our childhood or at whatever point, the goodness about God is, God comes for the sick. He does not come for the well. So you might even connect with God at adulthood. So it is not like you have lost it because your environment of household upbringing did not have godliness or did not impute in you the virtues of God's grace. But once we have been impacted with the Spirit of God, that Spirit of God enables us navigate through the unfoldings of life that sometimes can be very challenging, even to our very understanding of who we thought we were or what we thought we had. But constantly we are reminded this life has nothing to do with me. It is about God. I'm a channel of God's grace. I'm a vessel of his use, and I'm an agent that God uses. So the Spirit of God, which is impacted in you, in your childhood, your mother and other mothers and other fathers know once that is given to the child. And that is why Proverbs 22 verse 6 says, train up a child in the way he should go. And when he is grown up, you'll not depart from it. So that there is a nudge from the within of the heart, which will call the roar of God to life. Even when somebody would want to do the direct opposite of what is wicked in the society, a man is called to desire to lead in the way of God. So that possession of faith is so critical, and that if done by the Father.
Yes.
Because again, we have said and will consistently insist on reminding ourselves, he's a boundary cutter. If you go through Proverbs and Psalms, you realize that the Father is referred to as the instructor or the trainer. And that means setting the pace. When you are instructing and you are training, you actually become a model.
Yes.
You are setting the pace. You are showing the specs, how they fit. The woman is referred to as the teacher. And the two are different. When the specs have been well set in position, then the teacher comes in, a curriculum has been set.
That's it.
The syllabus has been spelled.
The syllabus is
you come in and you do the lesson notes.
That's it.
You help the teaching. So the woman comes with the teaching. And it is unfortunate that many a times there is teaching without the specs.
I see that.
Without the specs, because of the absence of the man, and the lack of the faith of the man. Because that faith of the man is an exemplary mothering faith.
Yes.
The man is referred to as a father. That's the word we use. And God is Father. And we cannot throw away those terms. They are very intentional from the heart of God. That this is the person to model after. He sets the boundaries, you fill in the details. So we are having situations where we are filling in details, but boundaries are enmeshed. They are confused. We don't have distinctiveness of boundaries. We need to get our boundaries right. Then families will be orderly, society will be orderly, the nations of God will be orderly. That is the cry. And when I look at the species of the male gender, for me, as a mother, who is a mother of both the female and the male, I am more than ever passionate. And I breed when I see men not in their position.
That's it.
Because I see the confusion.
That's it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. That's the last part that I'd like us to look at. And I want you to take 2 minutes to look at it before I come for your closing remarks this morning on this particular issue. There's a story here, a chapter, here, that I normally essentially look at it. They're saying that is the mailman supporting his family to succeed in life. It's one area, and I want you to touch up on that with helping boys to become the mailman in the society. The 2 chapters that I want you to touch on. I mean, helping your family to succeed in life as a mailman. Is that a purpose? Is that what sort of helps you regain your position as a mailman? Like that's what you gotta do if you're gonna be called the mailman who understands his position. Is that what it is?
Yes. Okay, let's put it this way. The success of a man is not measured by how much property he has, how much money he has in the bank or other places, but what kind of family he brings up.
Is that what it is?
Yes, that's the success of man.
It's not about how many people know you, or you got to look at yourself, isn't it?
No, it's because of the family you bring up.
Or is the family that you bring up? Is that what the Bible envisions?
Exactly. Because if a man was successful, and there has been examples of if somebody was a crooked, and he raised up a family of crooked people who went becoming worse and worse and worse. But if a man was good and nurtured his family, he went on having good families who became bishops, who became doctors, who became what? Because he nurtured the family well. So the success of man is actually measured by what kind of family he raises.
So when your family succeeds, we sort of start to look at you differently.
Exactly.
Is that what it is, yeah?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
It gives you a position as a mailman.
Exactly.
That's a man who essentially knows what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, because you did what you did, and you produced, children who are actually helping society and helping everybody, because you actually raised a good family. So that's your success. Let's go to your specific question.
Yes.
A man helping his family to succeed. You actually, first of all, help your wife. It has been seen that others don't support their wives.
Yes.
They want to relegate them, or rather they don't want to come up. For instance, if a man goes, even becomes a PhD holder, and when they married with his wife, maybe that time they were, the wife had a certificate, you had a diploma.
Yes.
And from the diploma, you got a scholarship, and you went for your bachelor's, you went for your master's, and you went for your PhD.
Yes.
And you did not think about your wife. That means by the time you are finishing your PhD, even the understanding gap between you and your wife is so wide that you have not helped your wife to come up alongside with you.
Yeah.
I know of a friend of ours who went for his master's in the US, and he went with the family and then went for his PhD, but he made sure that the wife was registered. Actually, after he finished his PhD, and to stay almost a year so that the wife may finish her, her bachelor's. Yeah. At least with a certificate, he had to come home with the wife having a bachelor's degree.
No, sir.
So he stayed there longer. So a man, first of all, helps his wife to succeed. As he goes along in life, he is helping her to succeed. And in many other ways. There are many other ways you can help your wife to succeed. First of all, make sure that you are giving her enough responsibility. For instance, she's your deputy. Yeah. When you are absent, delegate her complete powers to run your home if you are not there. So that's a way of helping her to succeed. Also, of course, another way you can help your wife succeed is by telling her about your secrets.
Yes.
So by secrets, we are talking about the property you own. Maybe you own a plot in Mombasa, in Malindi, posh plot there, the Malindi next to the sea.
Yes.
And your wife doesn't know it. Even she doesn't know it, should you pass away by, without having told her, then that's going to be claimed by the unclaimed property by the government. So if you tell your secret to your wife, you are actually uplifting her. So you need to support her to come as close as possible, and don't have secrets, and help her to succeed. Also, whatever her career. If she is, by the way, if she is gifted academically more than you, why not let her even get her PhD while you don't have one? That's quite okay. So on top of your wife,
so it makes you stronger.
Oh, yes. She is too. By the way, she bears your name.
Yes,
she's called by your name.
Engineer, do you know that the majority of men are kind of sort of advised that your wife should not be more educated than you? And if your wife has 1 PhD, the communique outside there is that you have 2 yourself. If she's making 1,000 bob, make sure you're making 3,000 bob.
Yes, that is of course.
Is that the wrong way to view
yes,
your position as a male man?
The modern way of thinking. But if you get that under the under partnership,
yes,
that will not matter because she knows you are the leader. Okay, I can give you an example of her.
Yes, in 45 seconds.
Yes. When she was a pastor of Lavington United Church, she used to tell the congregation, I am your pastor and even my husband's pastor, but when we get home, he is the priest. He is my priest. He is my priest. So you make sure that, if anyone succeeds, she knows that at home, she is, she
understands her position.
She understands her position, exactly.
I'm going to give you a minute, and please take just a minute. There's that area that I asked him that I want you to look at now. How can we then help young boys to sort of understand their position? Because they're the ones who are going to be men now. How we sort of graduate them to understand, to reposition them as a male man?
Well, because of the cry that we have in society about the boy child having been relegated or abandoned,
yes.
I think the cry is we must ask ourselves, who has abandoned
yes.
the boy child?
Yes.
And I think the critical thing is that the male man needs to have sittings with the boy child.
Yes.
And with wholeness with himself, speak wholeness into the boy child. So we are advocating cohort meetings for the boy child with a male man. And that means it doesn't even have to be your own son, but be a father to the sons of the land, to the sons of your larger family, to the sons of your society. And let all of us bear a burden that we want the male man to be dignified in his position, so that we are not having the male man confused and even wanting to carry the traits of a woman. There are enough women. Let the women do their job, and let the men do their tasks, and let each of ourselves take our positions. Then there will be dignity in the creation of God.
Pretty much 15 seconds.
Yes. The man has to be a model. Behavior is caught, not taught. So if he himself is not behaving well, then he is actually showing those boys to behave like wrestling. So he has to be a model in well behavior, so that the boys will catch up. They catch the behavior as they see him doing so. Pretty much. Behavior is caught, not taught.
Not taught.
Yes.
You know what? This particular conversation, I've gone on and on and on about it, but there's no need, because you can actually get your hands on this book and get to read exactly what the sentiments are on it. Can they get this book?
Okay, right now we are going to be having these books at Ufungamano Bookshop. That is one we are assured of immediately. And then also they can make a call. I think we don't have a problem with you sharing our number with the audience that are listening. They can make a call. That is 0722 232-883. Make a call and we will organize to have the books delivered to where you desire it to come.
Pretty much. You know what the biggest takeaway is that it's not about doings. It's about being. There's nothing. You can do 90-10, but still the man is going to be the man. She can do 90, you can do 10, but still the man is going to be the man as envisioned in that creation story. It's got to be the biggest takeaway. And man, you've been challenged. Reclaim your position as a male man. I mean, the biggest lessons here. We end it here. Take them back to the time that they came right here online and Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. I am at Kia Gasemba, Reverend Dr. Rosemary and Engineer Sospita. Thank you very much for coming. It's been quite a pleasure to host you right here at Lookuptv. Goodbye. I'll see you tomorrow for another section.